asylum seekers or economic migrants who make it from Sudan to the UK have a 99% chance of being given leave to remain. So I spent several hours talking to immigration chiefs here in Benghazi on the east side of Libya. The Libyan National Army has a very good grip on the immigration problem, albeit fighting against a huge crisis with limited resources. There is a very, very clear process of giving people proper health checks, the life-saving care that they need, and then working out where it is exactly that they've come from. Their message to the UK is that you are fueling this problem. You are effectively advertising a great new life for people from sub-Saharan Africa. They actually said, you know, what do you think happens when a guy from Sudan comes up through Libya and makes his way all the way to the UK and gets put in a luxurious hotel and provided with everything? And make no mistake, it is a perilous journey. We see it from the end point. We see the channel crossing as the dangerous bit. But actually where these journeys begin is in the hot desert. Many, many tens of kilometres have to be covered on foot by these migrants. And as many as 1 in 4 do not make it. That means bodies in the desert. The Libyan authorities are having to recover bodies in the desert. About the UK and how much awareness police
across the UK on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
And a warm welcome to you, yes, you. It is Weekend Breakfast, Morning Glory right here on Talk. I'm Jonny Gould, and the startling breaking news is that England are about to win a test match down under. Too late! Oh. OK, so it will be 3-1 to the Aussies after this, but at least we can hold our heads up high in one of the most bizarre test matches. And if you thought Perth was weird, this Melbourne test has been even more condensed. It's been like 4 T20 innings all condensed into 2 days. What a crazy world of cricket. It sounds like I know what I'm talking about. You know, I've been a sports reporter for many, many decades, but sort of cricket kind of went over me nod. But actually, I've come into it in older age. I've become slightly more cerebral, a bit slower, you know, where you look around at things. Cricket has become something that I've become to enjoy, as well as the rough and tumble of your football. Now, listen, welcome along. We've got a brilliant show today. Great guests, great comment. You on the phones, you on the voicemails, you know, the little voice notes, which you have used, I must say, very dimensionally to me over the last few days. Cindy from Michigan singing Last Christmas Down It. I mean, you know, we're really, really testing the technology here, and that all happens on 0344 499 1000, welcoming your points as we go through the shows. We're going to have lots and lots of talking points. I'm delighted to say that joining me to review the morning's papers, because the news agenda never slows, is our comedian and friend, but not necessarily in that order, is Paul Cox.
Morning, Johnny. How you doing?
Hello, mate. It's nice to see you.
It's great, isn't it? I feel like after Christmas I'm rejuvenated. Seems like the news hasn't changed whatsoever, though. No. It's still bleak. Still bleak,
It's bleak. I mean, on the 24th, going into Christmas Day, it was really terrible. The foiled plot of terror, destined for Prestwich in Manchester. Avon and Somerset police saying, Bob Villan saying death to the IDF. Nah, that's all right. Keep going. Keep going, Bob. Keep surfing the crowd. There was something else monstrous as well.
There's always something monstrous, Johnny. I try to blank it out, you know. Whenever I talk about this stuff, I always think, well, there'll be another monstrous thing next week, so we don't have to worry about it too much.
That's the thing, but we mustn't be desensitised.
Good point. Really, you know,
that's
good
the
point.
thing. Another monstrous thing next time.
It's so true, isn't it? I mean, I joke because that's kind of my role, but it's terrifying. It's harrowing, actually, the amount of ridiculously terrifying things that are happening on such a regular basis. And we are getting to the point now where we just go, OK. But I'll tell you why that is, though, because we're gaslit into thinking this is OK. We're constantly told, don't worry about it, everything's just fine. And then all of a sudden the next thing happens. Well, hang on a minute, last week you said it was fine. And on we go.
Absolutely. The Ariana Grande thing sticks in my craw because of the way that the mass media covered it.
Yeah, that was awful.
So, you know, let's get a northern poet in to say nice things about it, make a poem. And we go, yeah, man. And everyone tried to get together for community. And, you know, people were used as useful idiots.
Yeah, of course.
In these things. People donating. And, you know, they did that with their goodwill. And they did that in their heart, you know, community groups bringing help to the stricken. But in the sort of wider scheme of things, they were being treated as useful idiots.
Yeah, sort of.
I really find that really disgusting.
It's sinister, isn't it? The way that the way they'll take something like community cohesion and say, this is what we need to find. And they'll malevolently bend it into their favours.
That's it.
Don't look over there. That's not, you know, this, we know what the problem is, but please don't look at it. Please don't look at it. Over here, look, there's a concert. We put a concert on for you.
Yeah.
And thoughts and prayers.
That's right. Now, because the one thing that hasn't really emerged from that terrorist atrocity, and it was one of the worst because it was basically young girls dancing and having fun, wasn't it? It was that kind of concert. And the softest of targets.
Yes.
And we know about the misogyny in the Islamic world. They don't like women not wearing many clothes and dancing on their own independently. And that was part of it.
It was not an accident, that's for sure.
That was part of it.
It's an attack. It's an attack at the very epicentre of Western culture as well. The sort of thing that we have fought hard for.
Yeah.
Now we might within our own culture dispute whether certain things should happen, but that's for us to discuss.
Yes.
However, it's very much a deliberate attack on that, saying we don't respect this. And of course, one of the other taboos is to suggest that some of these people, of course, don't hold women in as high regard as we do. Johnny.
No, that's right. Some of them, I say. You know, that's some of them.
Some of them, Johnny.
Philip Keasley, who was my guest yesterday on the Breakfast Show, and indeed a few days ago, said something I thought in one of his many, many excellent articles on the New Culture Forum. He talks about our ability to enjoy our lives in a self-contained way. We enjoy our lives here. We enjoy our practices. We enjoy about moaning about the weather. We enjoy the ups and downs of our national cricket team. We enjoy the institutionalized comedy of many, many generations of great acts that we've had. We enjoy the pop music that we are the world champions of. Yeah. And then this comes along and tries to abrupt it. And we've seen that with Ariana Grande. We've seen that with Aston Villa v Maccabi. You know, we see this where these flash mobs go into shopping centres and down Oxford Street or New Street and start protesting for things which are a very long way away and try and attack people's conscience in ways that they may not be ready to understand.
Yeah, and I think the worrying thing
really
for me is it's incredibly easy to co-opt well-meaning people. We often talk about people on the left and how easily they get involved in these good causes, but they never look below the surface. They just say, well, it's dying children. Yeah. Okay, why are they dying? Yeah. Why are they in a position to die? What provoked such an event? Yes. And immediately there's division. Yes. Nobody has a sensible debate about it. Certainly in sort of legacy mainstream media types just aren't interested. No. They want you to think a certain way, and that makes them all useful idiots as well.
We're being given a new news agenda to follow, and it started in the last couple of days. And I'll talk to you about that in just a moment. We're going to get onto the top story. I'm talking about the Nigerian attack by the Americans on what they call Boko Haram and anti-Islamic targets, because, as Trump calls it, they're killing Nigerian Christians, and I'm going to put a stop to that. So I'm going to talk about that in such a moment, because we're being told certain things. We're right at the start of that discussion, and I just want you to be aware of what you're being told, and maybe you need to unpack it for yourself, because it's a new chapter in the international fight against Islamism, and I just need you to sort of understand that. We'll talk about that in a moment.
Sure.
But first of all, let's go home now, because home is where the heart is. The UK has twice as many foreign doctors and nurses as the Western average, a report has revealed. The Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD, found that foreign-trained doctors made up 38.3% of the UK's medical workforce in 2023, and that is compared with an average of about 20% across the other developed and developing countries. More recent data, which regulates doctors in the UK, found that the number has continued to rise and now stands at 42%, in contrast to Germany, where the figure is just 15%, while in France it's only 11%. The influx of foreign doctors to Britain, which now tops 20,000 a year, has come as UK medical graduates struggle to secure training places. In other words, if you qualify as a doctor in the UK, you might be outbid by foreign doctors taking your jobs. Oh, Paul.
Look, this is all of our own making, Johnny. This is not the Labour government now. It's probably not even the previous Tory government. It's right the way back, pre-2010. We've always capped the number of places for junior doctors training. Training takes 10 to 15 years, which makes it very expensive. And one of the reasons they capped it is they've entirely underestimated population growth. So I assume, if they're clever enough, and let's assume that they are, they build a number of training places around population growth. They totally underestimated population growth, and back in, the sort of what we're seeing now, if it takes 10 to 15 years, would have been put in place in 2010. So back then they entirely underestimated what the UK population would look like now, and it's no surprise, is it? Because we've had hundreds and hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of extra people come into the country in that time that weren't planned for, but that do absorb those resources. Now, another thing, of course, is which makes it incredibly ridiculous, because if our children or even us, we wanted to become doctors in the UK, God forbid, then...
Well, you look the part.
Imagine.
A nice bedside manner.
Well, maybe that's about it. If I turn up at your bedside, then...
Oh, blimey. Sit straight.
Yes. Request the police. We have... We haven't trained people, but because there just haven't been enough spaces. Well, it's incredible to hear that if you are trying to become a doctor in the UK, you can't. And I think as much as I want to blame this entirely on foreign doctors, because we've got quite a high threshold which you have to hit. It's not like they're rubbish doctors. I mean, there are a lot of things you have to take into account to be a doctor. You need good bedside manner, you need good communication, and arguably some of that's not the case when you're a foreign doctor. But we aren't able to push people through because we've completely underestimated the value of having British doctors. And it's just been, we've had 20 or 30 years of diversity is king and multiculturalism is great, that we've gone, don't worry about it, we can always pull from the global community, and that won't be a problem because we're a welcoming nation. But it's turned out that the end of this experiment is about 2025, 2026, and we're all now looking at it going, this has entirely failed, and because it's failed, we've got this huge population, we haven't got an NHS that can look after our people, and everyone's divided.
Yes, and this kind of puts a context on the latest doctors' strike that we're all a bit appalled by and looks like a terrible bad PR exercise considering the huge pay rise they got at the beginning of the Starmer government. But now, when you think about this idea that resident doctors, as they're now called, can't get jobs because the market is flooded by doctors from abroad, you kind of begin to understand their gripe. So resident doctors cited foreign medics taking limited speciality training places as one of the reasons for their pre-Christmas strike. 0344 499 1000, as this story emerges, do you have slightly more sympathy for the resident doctors' strike? As a result, British doctors can be left without a training place, even as trusts recruit from abroad to meet immediate and urgent staffing needs. It sounds like the January transfer window, doesn't it? Where you bring in a player from another club, only because, Charlie's injured, but then you've got him on 60 grand a week, you know, and you don't need him anymore, and he's in the bomb squad. Which is a term for when they put the players in the reserves and they're on, you know, 60 grand a week and they don't play. Training a UK doctor cost the taxpayer £160,000, and the ratio of applicants to medical school places in Britain is about 3 to 1, while for junior doctors applying to speciality training posts is 4 to 1. So NHS trusts were legally required to prioritise British graduates until 2019, when doctors were added to the UK occupation shortage list, and this change was made permanent by the overhaul of the visa system in 2021 under the former Prime Minister Boris Johnson's Boris Wave.
Which is going to prove, which does prove day by day, week by week, incredibly damaging and is getting much worse. Boris's legacy is this Boris Wave now, and it's. For a man that was pro-Brexit, and we don't know if he supports Brexit or not.
No.
He waited for David Cameron. Do you remember back in probably 2014, 2015, he waited for David Cameron to say what he was going to do and then went the other way.
Yes.
He'd already written columns pro and anti-Brexit.
Yes.
For the big newspapers. So we've absolutely no idea what Boris
And of
Johnson
course,
stood
it
for.
was that decision on the turn of a dice or the card that got him elected, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, he won 2019's landslide election on the basis he was going to get Brexit delivered. And you can argue that he did get Brexit over the line, but he just did not fulfil his remit. That he had such a mandate to take the country forward at that point, to then have a legacy that is the Boris Wave, just goes to show what a terrible state we found ourselves in.
Indeed. So now we have this other story, which is about the fury as a number of foreign criminals aren't deported. It hits a record high, and it's only going up. The constant threat in our country, and even if you're not directly affected by crimes upon you, you're affected by the trust you feel when you walk down the street.
Yes.
Our high trust society is being eroded. You don't know whether you should talk to someone, and I find that very, very sad indeed, because I do go out of my way to try and be pleasant, you know, like Ron Manager, marvellous, you know. And it's really sad that it's come to this, but that is the kind of the instant reaction to the fact that foreign criminals aren't deported, and it's hit this record high, isn't it, Paul? It's this trust in our environment.
Yeah, I mean, I would say our incumbent culture, of which there was plenty. I've been watching, over Christmas, I like to watch documentaries, and I particularly like to watch documentaries which depict people and the way people lived during a time. And just over Christmas, while I've had a bit of time to myself, I've been watching some documentaries from the late 60s, early 70s, just about how community was in Great Britain during that time, and you can see the vast change. There was a pretty consistent culture. There was a class issue for sure, but there was a pretty consistent culture across Great Britain, which has entirely been dissolved now. And
has it entirely been dissolved, or can we, you know, fight for who we are? Even the trivial things.
It's been dissolved across the institutions.
Right.
So you and I can hold that culture, and many people like us, and I'm sure our listeners and viewers hold that culture. But when the institutions around us that keep us all together pretend that there was never a culture and that we must accept foreign cultures as our new way of living, or be much more accepting of them, that's where the problem begins, because all it does immediately is everything you've learned, and to say that the way that we lived was old-fashioned is one thing, but to throw it out because we need to be more accepting of whatever culture's coming in is really remiss. At the end of the day, you need a foundation from which to build, a baseline from which to build, and we had one here. I don't know when it was. Maybe it's just nostalgia that's overtaken my mind, but it seems like since the late 90s, it's all gradually just disappeared. To the point where there are people like you and I saying we do vaguely remember a time where we could say hello to our neighbours, or we wouldn't feel afraid to say to someone on the bus, "Can you turn that music down, please?" It's, you know, we all want to travel on this bus in some form of peace, and that wouldn't have been an issue. The young Scully would have probably just gone quiet, and everything would have been
might have
okay.
even said sorry.
Yeah, you never know. But now they're much more likely to do something much more dangerous.
Yeah.
So we've allowed this. Concurrent governments have allowed this erosion of our culture, and I'm afraid this is where we end up. This is why this huge vacuum has appeared in politics. Once conventional two-party system is now dead. The Tories seem dead, Labour are dead. And it's why you've got Reform have been able to fill that void. They've taken the first steps. And we got to a point where 15% of the population would vote for Zach Polanski.
Yeah, which is something new, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, obviously my personal opinion is they should all be rounded up and kept in a secure unit.
Which is maybe Brighton and Hove, for example.
They're already there. They're already there, Johnny.
03444991000, with apologies to the population of East Sussex there and its environs. I'm Jonny Gould. He's Paul Cox. A very good morning. You're welcome. Your comments and stuff. More news after this break, so stay tuned.
Brand new for 2026. It's going to be the only way to start your day. It's the home of common sense. It's where the nation can come to speak about the day's news. It's the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. You know who you are. You get up, you graft, you work hard. I'm here for you. We want to hear your side. Promise you one thing. It is where the nation can and will come to talk. The Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show, weekdays from 6 a.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, I'm going to bring you some news now, which is England have won the Test match. That's right. We've beaten Australia in the fourth Test as early as day 2. And if someone had said to you, we're going to win the fourth Test within 2 days, you might think before the series began that we were probably 4-0 up. No, it's all over bar the shouting. The Aussies have obviously taken their foot off the gas a little bit. Nothing was riding on this game, but of course English pride. So well done the boys. we are not going to lose 5-0, and that is something to celebrate. And I'm going to sound a little bit like Jim Rosenthal and Harry Carpenter, and then move on. I always used to love Harry Carpenter on Sports Night because he used to do this new paragraph thing with his lips. And so Frank Bruno will fight Lennox Lewis in Cardiff.
He did, didn't he?
Now, Manchester United, they never said it in 3 syllables like you should do. Manchester United are playing an important game against Bruges. Sport is done. Now, Sadiq, Paul Cox is here.
Hello.
Paul Cox is a comedian.
I am.
Just in case you didn't.
I always worry when people have got to point that out.
Just in case. Right. Sadiq Khan reignites the war of words with Donald Trump. They're like the Blur versus Oasis of the 21st century, aren't they? Now, he thinks the US president routinely attacks London because he's jealous of it. The mayor of London has reignited those words. Sir Sadiq, get used to it, folks. Sir Sadiq claimed that mere Mr. Trump only attacks the capital because he's jealous he hasn't got any global cities in America that can compete with London. I'm thinking of what Frank Sinatra talked about. What's that place? I wanna be a part of it. And he talked about Chicago and LA. They've got a few cities to be. They've got the ever-burgeoning Miami. They've got Austin, Texas. OK, this isn't London stuff. But, you know, the United States has its fair share of great cities. Now, the mayor, who has been in office since 2016...
Incredible. It's like a dictator mayorship, isn't it?
2016. Oh. He also said that MPs who criticise the capital are unpatriotic, as he accused them of attacking London because it's incredibly successful. It's the latest skirmish in a long-running feud between the Labour mayor and the US president, with Mr. Trump earlier this month branding Sir Sadiq a horrible, vicious, disgusting mayor. Whose side are you on, Paul?
Donald Trump's.
Thank you very much.
There is only one side in this, isn't there?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think Donald Trump is quite overtaken with it as Sadiq Khan would like him to believe. And if London is successful, and that's a massive if, it's successful for all the reasons that have absolutely nothing to do with Sadiq Khan. You know, its service in banking industry, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
He's like a walking, talking diversity doll. You pull the string on his back and he comes out with all sorts of multicultural waffle. Everything, even his Christmas message. I mean, he's got like Muslim women singing Christmas carols in a church, you know, and talking about Christmas being, you know, a multicultural, multi-diverse occasion. Well, I don't think you've read the Nativity, my old friend. You know, it's not, and it's okay for it not to be. We don't co-opt Eid. No one ever co-opts Eid or anything of that nature, or Diwali or anything else. We allow people, we are forced to, but we do allow people to enjoy their own holidays for some reason, because Christianity, and this is what he talks about, jealousy, because Christianity is still the prominent religion, believe it or not, Johnny, in this country.
It is. It's the prevailing culture, and if you don't believe me, look at the way that Christmas envelops everybody.
Absolutely.
Engages everyone.
Just look at the screen behind you. There's actual snow.
Oh, yeah, look.
Actual snow here in London. Big tree. Johnny's... I'm surprised you're not cold, Johnny. I agree. I think he's jealous. Genuinely think he's jealous of something like a Christian celebration, because it basically brings as many people together as possible, the type of thing that they would love to happen. By they, I mean some Muslim fundamentalists.
That's right. I mean, there's never been an Al Slade song saying, you know, Happy Eid Mubarak.
No, they don't.
Everybody's having fun.
All the things that you require, like creativity, drink.
Well, that's a big no-no in most parts of the Muslim world.
Yeah, women being given an equal parity in life. All these things that create Christmas. By the way, it's such a good point about women, actually. I say it's such a good point. I made the point, so maybe it's not. It's for everybody else to decide. But women make Christmas, by the way.
Right.
I mean, you'd have no idea what the children were getting. In fact, children wouldn't get anything if there weren't women involved. Most of the Christmas dinner wouldn't get made. The table wouldn't be put together. Christmas Day, what I mainly do is sit and wait for the next meal between rooms and look at children's presents as if I had any idea of what they were going to be in the first place. So we value women, we value our Christian culture, and I don't think Sadiq Khan does. I think what he has to do is take everybody else's culture, or his culture of his own, crowbar it in and say, look, we're all enjoying it too. That's because he's the mayor of London, and he is continually the mayor of London in some sort of dictatorship because he appeals to all the different people. He tells all these people that if you don't vote for me, then there is this horrible, horrible other group of people out there that don't like you. I'm the only person who can protect you. He's like the Joseph Fritzl of London.
That's right. That's not right.
That's right.
No, that's right. Yeah, that's right. But Sean Bailey got very, very close to him.
He did.
I do think at some point when the Tories take this election for the London Mayor seriously, then there will be a mayor who is either right-leaning on the Tory or Reform side, and things will change.
Yeah, it's been... I mean, Boris achieved it. And we don't know if Boris is right-leaning or not, let's be honest.
Well,
but
yes, but
he's
perceived to be, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. So he's from the Conservative Party, but he did it kind of on his character. We need a Boris-type character to come along. Before that was Red Ken, wasn't it? And there's only been 3 or 4 mayors of London, of which Sadiq...
That's right.
Sadiq's been in, like you say, since...
2016.
Yeah.
Now, the first mayor of London was, of course, the outlier, Ken Livingstone, who was the independent, and then basically Tony Blair said, oh, blimey, we better get him back in. Yeah. So he became the Labour mayor. I always thought when they created the London mayor's job, it was a diplomatic role as well as a doer. So Boris was a doer, the buses and the bikes and stuff, and he was quite...
The Olympics, he delivered the Olympics.
Yes, he delivered them, and you know he sort of did that thing on that zip wire with the flags. You know, he was able to inject an international superstardom to the role. I always thought at the beginning, and I'm not sure why this ever happened, but I thought Sir John Major would have made a very good first mayor of London because it would have added a status to it. The Brixton boy.
Was he part of the running against Ken?
I don't think he was.
Right.
It was... I can't remember. It was that far ago. But as the London mayor was amorphous, it wasn't created. If they'd have had the former Prime Minister, a Brixton boy made good, if they'd have made him mayor, it would have demonstrated what I think the mayor should have been. Part doer, part negotiator, part statesman. And I think they missed a trick there. And now, what is it, 25 years later, we've got this.
Yes.
Tories don't take it seriously. I mean, you know, many people admire Susan Hall, but I don't think she's electable in the same way as maybe Khan or even perhaps Sean Bailey might have been. Sean Bailey.
Yeah, Susan holds Sadiq Khan to account at Mayor's Questions, undoubtedly, as to a lot of the rest of the committee, to be fair. And Sean did run them close. But I think the Tories have looked at this and gone, we can't get close to this because of the... This is why Sadiq Khan is so successful in London. He's managed to divide and conquer. He's the one who says that there is this division and he brings the cohesion. It's the division that keeps him in power.
Yes.
He loves that division.
He does.
That division,
as we see with the hate marches.
Yeah, you know, he deliberately obfuscates on some things and indulges in other things because he just knows how to keep his position. He is incredibly talented at keeping that division going and keeping his position. Like I say, Susan Hall has been holding to account, but I think you're right, Johnny. I think she's ever going to become Mayor of London.
Text and comment is also extremely welcome. And on the subject of Boris Johnson not being left or right, do we know? Well, Roger from Hounslow says, I believe that Boris became a lefty when he married his much younger left-leaning wife, Carrie. Sharon from Staffordshire, good morning. Pathetic Trump is not jealous of London or you. London is not successful at all, Khan. You've totally ruined London. And I'm embarrassed to say I was born in the UK because of people like you, Khan. You're an embarrassment to the UK. Khan, you are the one that's jealous of the USA's success. And Trump, says Sharon. I think I've read that in the way that you typed that, Sharon. Thank you for that. Sharon Miller, welcome along to you. Why are foreign criminals not deported? Why is this country such a soft touch? If this was the USA, you commit a crime, you would be deported ASAP. All your comments welcome and your calls 0344 499 1000. In a moment, gap year soldiers will be trained to fight in war zones. Are we really preparing for war with Russia? Stay tuned.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
I hope you're enjoying the show as much as we are here in the studio. It's Christmas time, and it's the 27th. It's day 3 of your Christmas. England have won a test match. We won by 4 wickets. Isn't that good news? I might keep repeating that because, yes, it's true. It's not fake news. We really have beaten the Australians in the 4th test match in Melbourne by 4 wickets in 2 days. Yeah, we sorted it out. What opponents they are, yeah. 03444991000. Paul Cox is with me. Hello, Paul. He's here with me, and your comments are always welcome on the news agenda and all the things that we're talking about. And you can, you know, if you're brave enough as well, join us on air 03444991000, as I know you are. We're a very welcoming and inclusive crew here at Talk. And of course, if you want to leave a voicemail, we're always up for listening what you've got to say, or indeed sing at this festive time. Now, school leavers will be trained to fight in war zones, says the Telegraph. It's part of a voluntary paid gap year in the armed forces. The government plans to offer schools and college leavers the chance to spend a year in uniform to test whether they enjoy forces life. The scheme, which was recommended in the Strategic Defence Review earlier this year, is part of efforts to solve a crisis in recruitment amid the growing military threat from Russia. Further details have now emerged, including that recruits will be offered military training to prepare them for combat in war zones. I mean, necessary, but also very, very sad, especially for people of our age. I don't exactly know how old you are.
I'm 46.
You're
Johnny.
46, okay, so I'm a touch older than you. I remember as a very young child, I actually saw very old men with one leg wearing medals with huge sideburns. These were clearly men born in the 19th century who served as teenagers in the First World War. I remember First World War soldiers, obviously in their dying years, their last years. And of course, that wasn't even the half of it. And then we had the Second World War, which was a consequence of the First. We've had 80 beautiful years of peace where we've taken that peace for granted to the point where we have hate marchers who protest on their luxury benefits of freedom, whereas actually the things that they truly protested for, they'd get killed for in any of the places that they're protesting in favour of. And here we are, in an imperial nation, Russia again. You know, I don't want to see a war at the age I am. I don't want my kids to be growing up and potentially serving in the armed forces in any country. It's depressing as hell, isn't it?
Incredibly depressing.
How far have we come? Not
So
very
many-
far.
No, we haven't, unfortunately. So many things are colliding here. We've got impending war potentially with Russia, depending on your view. We've got a military which is completely depleted, and we've got a society that if you gave them guns would probably march to Westminster before they march to Moscow, because they've been given nothing to fight for.
Yes.
And it's a huge problem. I think there is peace through strength. I think you have to have a good military, you have to have nuclear weapons, you do need Trident, you do need to make sure that you are strong. It's great to be part of NATO. We do need alliances with the US. Of course, we now need alliances with the US, not because they make good allies, but because we're entirely reliant on them.
Yeah.
Because if we had to go to war on our own, I'm not sure who we could beat. Maybe Gran Canaria. I don't know.
And you don't want to this time of year, do you?
No, not this time of year,
Not
of
this,
course.
especially not maybe in February.
No.
But I'm just going to add a little bit of geopolitical meat to the bone here, which is the biggest military in Europe is Poland.
Poland, yeah.
Right, and they are there on the front line. Poland have made it very, very clear since the early 90s that they are looking west and not east. They didn't like being a Soviet satellite. Okay, and they are nationalist in a way that upon it as a little bit scary, but that's Poland, and they have that history. it's also very flat. The land is flat there. And if you go to eastern France and you take a train which goes from Paris to Strasbourg, you will see how flat that is and how invadable Russia is. Okay, so that's in the Russian psyche, and they want their Soviet bits back. That is part of the attraction of the Ukraine war. Okay, I'm not justifying it, I'm just sort of giving an explanation here. That if you go through France and Poland and the Urals, it's flat as hell, right? And invadable, that part of Russia. And I was informed by someone who really, really knows geopolitical and military affairs, Mr. Andrew Fox.
Right.
I said, this warmongering that Putin's doing by sailing his ships within binocular views of Scotland, and he reminded me about Poland's military. I said, how would it go? And he said, well, we'd destroy them very, very quickly. But in the meantime, they'd destroy Canary Wharf with drones. They would attack us via Scotland. And God forbid, this short war, though it might happen, would precipitate a new world order. We're apparently still controlling the waves of the North Atlantic, but Russia is breathing down our necks. It's profoundly depressing. Giorgia Meloni was saying yesterday, she said, if you thought 2025 was bad, it's going to get even worse in 2026. I mean, she's nice to look at.
She is.
But there's that.
So look, one of Russia's greatest tricks is they managed to convince most of the weak underbelly of the Western Europe to believe that there's no threat from them. And what's really interesting, the further right you go on politics, the more supportive people seem to become of Russia. For some reason, they really don't see Russia as much of a problem. Now, because I work in centre-right media, I get a lot of stick for saying Putin's evil. I genuinely believe Putin's evil. I believe he's the closest thing to a fascist that we've got in power on earth at the moment. I also believe that given the right opportunity, he would invade parts of Europe, and there's large swathes of Europe, like the Baltics, for instance, that he could go for just like that.
He could do
Lithuania,
Moldova
Latvia,
in 45 minutes. It's under 1 million population. It's not part of NATO. It's next to Ukraine.
And I think a lot of people believe there's absolutely no chance on earth that it'd ever come for Great Britain. I don't know if that's true or not. One thing I do know is that one of the ways to keep Europe safe and stop them coming to us is to protect those Balkans, protect Moldova, and make sure that we stand strong.
Yeah.
We are in a weak position. I mean, look at Poland, for instance. They're in a very strong position. You go to Poland, they haven't got diversity barriers up to stop people going to Christmas markets.
They don't believe in it.
They don't need it.
They don't need it. They don't believe in it.
They've had a very right-leaning immigration policy for decades, which has meant that all the problems that we've imported don't exist in Poland, can't exist in Poland. Whereas the rest of us have all gone, oh, look, just come on in, it's absolutely no problem. I mean, Angela Merkel, do you remember, I can't remember what year it was, probably 10 years ago now, when she said, just as many of you as possible, come on in.
Yeah.
And look what, great swathes of Europe are basically being invaded and are under attack. Now, people might think that's incredibly strong language, but when you are preparing yourself potentially for an invasion from Russia, you need cohesion. And who, as I mentioned previously, who are we fighting for? I mean, I'm 46, so I guess I'm still at an age where I might have to do something. I could probably feign a bit of an intro. I've got a dodgy knee, Johnny. I'm not sure I should be. Not sure I should be.
You might be one of the Dad's Army
That
crew.
would be great. I'd be up for some of that.
Panic.
Don't panic, Mr. Manning.
Captain Manning.
Yeah, I could be. Yeah, I wouldn't be Pike, would I? I don't know who I'd be, but
No, you're a bit old for Pike.
yeah, Pike was just a young lad, wasn't he? Don't tell me your name, Pike. But I think we've lost our ability, because I talked about the incumbent culture before, we've lost our ability to understand what it is that we would want to be fighting for.
Yeah.
I don't think we understand what our Western cultural values are. Judeo-Christian Western culture.
Well, let me tell you what I've been thinking about this. And I've been thinking about this from the moment that I saw Gary Lineker's full name. Gary Lineker's full name is Gary Winston Lineker.
Right.
Right. So clearly his dad or mum or someone in the family was proud of our wartime leader and the victory that he managed over the Germans. And the Nazi tyranny. And Lineker isn't really a Churchill fan, is he?
I wouldn't have thought so, no.
So he might change his name to something else, which I'm not going to repeat on here.
No, I wouldn't.
However, what it made me think was that what Churchill did so brilliantly was he coalesced everyone in this country, from the decent to the right-minded to the deep-thinking British people, to those people who might have had tacit support for the fascists but realised that their country was on the line. So he brought everyone together. So I'm thinking that what has been manifested in this day and age is in fact a realisation that there are millions of people in this country who are in fact supportive of people like Putin and the H word.
Absolutely.
I'm thinking that.
Yes,
Churchill was so strong that he was able to coalesce all these people together.
There isn't a strong enough leader in this country to convince people otherwise. Like
That's
I talked
right.
about the political void, this huge vacuum that's been created by constant failings of the convention, Labour, Tory. This is why Farage, Reform, Polanski, the Yule Party, they've all been able to come in because there's nothing to look for. It's dire, dire times. And we kind of stood... I mean, I think it's not widely understood that Winston Churchill wasn't entirely popular previous to World War II. It's the work he did during World War II and subsequently. Of course, he was replaced immediately because he was a wartime leader and not much of a prime minister in terms of domestic things until, you know, he came back in power later in the 50s.
51.
Yeah, but who would we coalesce behind now? Who would we... And by the way, we've got a nation that's probably 30% full of men from foreign backgrounds that wouldn't fight for us no matter what anyway. They would probably disappear back home very sharpish. So, or they wouldn't fight at all, they would remain here, and dare I say, the incumbent British cultural people would go and fight, and goodness only knows what would happen at home.
God forbid we never have to see or imagine that one. Good morning to you. This is Breakfast on Talk. Good morning, sweetie, says Caroline. She means me. Isn't that nice? I'm up and about watching your show. Once we see the warmongering politicians, their children, and same for each world leaders, let us put them on the front line. Let them use their children as cannon fodder and not us. Thank you, Caroline. It's not going to happen, but you do worry about that. You do wonder whether they're quite happy to send us out to war and not their own kith and kin. 0344 499 1000. Your texts, your calls, and Paul after this.
Brand new for 2026. It's going to be the only way to start your day. It's the home of common sense. It's where the nation can come to speak about the day's news. It's the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. You know who you are. You get up, you graft, you work hard. I'm here for you. We want to hear your side. Promise you one thing, it is where the nation can and will come to talk. The Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show, weekdays from 6 a.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
And your text. Morning, Johnny and Paul. Why would anyone in their right mind volunteer for the military when years later the likes of Starmer and Hermer can come along and prosecute you?
Yes.
These two have damaged military recruitment for years to come, says Ian in Oldham. Thank you for that, Ian. Sadiq Khan says, Amanda, enough is enough. There needs to be a strict limit on how many times a mayor can stand for office. How much more damage can Khan ever hope to meet? I thank God he's no longer able. He no longer has to see the vile anti-Semitism which is infecting our country. And Sean says, morning, Johnny. Prepare for war with Russia. The state this country is in with Labour in charge will be a rescue mission by Putin. I jest, but not by much, Sean in Gloucester. Now, I can think of slightly more attractive politicians, about 1,500 better politicians without taking a breath than him in charge of Britain, I must say. Now, the education about drink driving must not abate, because when we were kids, you know, and you got to 17 years old, we were told, don't drink and drive, don't even drink one, you know, because your judgment will be all over the shop. So this is a consequence of perhaps that being relaxed somewhat, because Gen Z drivers are more relaxed about drink driving than older generations, researchers found, because, of course, they've stopped really talking about drinking and driving now. The survey of more than 2,000 adults found that 37% of Gen Zs believe it was socially acceptable to drive when marginally over the limit. Now that compares with 9% of baby boomers and 21% of people across the population as a whole. Now, it comes as Heidi Alexander, the Transport Secretary, is reportedly considering cutting the drink-drive limit in England and Wales as part of the upcoming road safety strategy. It's going to be published in the new year. The Cabinet Minister may reduce the limit from 35 milligrams of alcohol per 100 millilitres to 22. And this would be in line with Scotland, which cut its drink driving limit, 12 years ago, and the rest of Europe. So, a near zero tolerance of drinking. And of course, car driving in most metropolitan areas, I don't say this in rural areas, is less commonplace. People just have less cars these days.
That's true. I'm quite surprised by Gen Z being so relaxed on this, because they don't drink so much. But I think you're right, it's really interesting. It was just part of our environment growing up. It was incredibly taboo, really, to drink and drive.
Yes, it was.
There was a generation before ours that were kind of aghast at the idea they couldn't have several pints and drive, because that's what they were used to.
Yes.
And then we saw the damage it caused. And actually, you still do become a social pariah if you are to get caught drink driving, particularly if you was cause an accident or God forbid, hurt or kill someone.
Sure.
So it's very interesting to see this. I hate nanny state. I hate big government, right? But I also, but these sort of grey areas with regards to drink driving, you might as well just take it down to zero. I don't see the point of being able to have any, really. But at the same time, if you nip to the pub and have one, or if you have a glass of wine with your dinner, that seems okay. I just think if you're going to get behind the wheel, I barely drink these days. I drive nearly everywhere. I'm a stand-up comedian. I don't live in London. I work in London 3-4 days of the week. I have to drive up. I work evenings. I work early mornings. If I was to lose my licence through drink driving, I wouldn't just lose my licence, I'd lose my entire livelihood.
Yes. So have you got any silly points on there for speeding? Like doing 24 and a 20, all this kind of nonsense?
I've avoided points, but I did get a speeding ticket for 23 and a 20.
Yes, I've had that.
In about 2 years ago.
Yes.
And
there was a drive on that. And did you get fined lots of money?
Well, I went and did, yes, a little bit, but I went and did the course.
Yes.
So I managed to avoid points. And I remember listening to the police guy on that course saying how serious it is even at 23 miles an hour. And I'm thinking, well, OK, you know, I wouldn't want to get hit by a car travelling 23 miles an hour, but let's not get ahead of ourselves here. There's a reason that we have 20-mile-an-hour limits all throughout these metropolitan cities. It's because they don't want people to drive their cars. It's not just about safety. They really do not want people to drive their cars. I drive through London 2-3 o'clock in the morning on a very regular basis. Majority, 90% of the roads are 20 mile an hour. Those who do this regularly have learnt where the cameras are. I see taxi drivers, van drivers bombing through London because they only slow down for the cameras. It's very difficult. It is genuinely very difficult to remain at 18, 19 miles an hour.
It's tough, man.
When there
Especially
are
when you're going
no
down
cars
a hill.
on the road.
And some
no
of them
cars.
are traps as well. They know people are on a wide stretch of road and they know that that particular camera at that place is going to zap them.
Yeah, I got caught on Putney Hill.
Right.
You know, coming down into Putney, there's a camera there at 20 miles an hour. And this was actually a very quiet time of day as well.
Sure.
And it just coasting, you could do 25,
That's it.
27 miles an hour. So I had the brake on and I still got flashed.
But sometimes you get flashed and the fine doesn't appear in the post.
Oh, that's the dream. I think. I mean, it's not all of my dreams. But...
No, not every single one. It's like it sort of crosses over into your desire to be paparazzi'd as well, doesn't it? I would imagine. Now, ghost plates. This is a stunner here, right? And this is to do with this kind of thing getting zapped because they'll find your number plate and then send you a lovely letter in the post saying, oh, look, there's your Fiat with your number plate on it. You're nicked, son. £300. Now, but listen, not according to the Daily Mail, because Britain's broken number plate system is laid bare by the Mail. An investigation they've done which finds that official suppliers selling plates are invisible to road cameras. Oh, I must get old now. No. Ministers have been warned a wildly unregulated, it's very attractive, car registration regime is being exploited across the country. I didn't even know this existed. Thousands of crims are out there, you know, dealing with unscrupulous motorists. As many as 1 in 15 cars, Paul, have got these fantastic number plates on them, which ANPR clicky things can't read.
Do you know what? I was naive to this as well. I had no idea. And my first reaction was the same as your jesting reaction, which was, please, can I get a hold of some of these plates? Look, of course, but it's become sort of... We've got this ANPR culture now where it doesn't matter what... You can go into car parks. The amount of car park fines I've got just by driving into a car park, not realising I've been in there, and then come back
really?
Yeah, you just go in, come out, they've snapped your plate, and you get done. You drive through London, it's all over the place. So
that is Paul Cox, and there's more of Paul after this, so stay tuned after the news.
Libya has become a major transit route for refugees and migrants from sub-Saharan Africa, and many of them come through Libya dreaming of getting to the UK, particularly from Sudan, where there has been a civil war waging for the last 2 years. And those asylum seekers or economic migrants who make it from Sudan to the UK have a 99% chance of being given leave to remain. So I spent several hours talking to immigration chiefs here in Benghazi on the east side of Libya. The Libyan National Army has a very good grip on the immigration problem, albeit fighting against a huge crisis with limited resources. There is a very, very clear process of giving people proper health checks, the life-saving care that they need, and then working out where it is exactly that they've come from. Their message to the UK is that you are fueling this problem. You are effectively advertising a great new life for people from sub-Saharan Africa. They actually said, you know, what do you think happens when a guy from Sudan comes up through Libya and makes his way all the way to the UK and gets put in a luxurious hotel and provided with everything? And make no mistake, it is a perilous journey. We see it from the end point. We see the Channel crossing as the dangerous bit. But actually where these journeys begin is in the hot desert. Many, many tens of kilometres have to be covered on foot by these migrants. And as many as 1 in 4 do not make it. That means bodies in the desert. The Libyan authorities are having to recover bodies in the desert. About the UK and how much awareness. Please understand the scale of what we are dealing with here with very, very limited resources. Once again, you know, people come in from charities, from NGOs, they use warm words, and the authorities here told me the only thing that we ever get is maybe a few toothbrushes and some nappies for the babies.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
That's right, it's Style and Swagger right here on your Morning Glory on Talk. My name is Jonny Gould, and it's a pleasure to be with you this morning, and it's also a pleasure to have in the studios. Suddenly I'm speaking Latin. It's Paulus Coxus.
Sounds like an act you don't want to perform at this time of day.
Not at this time. Now, we were making jest of this story before the news because you like to round off an hour with a bit of jest, but it's serious now. The Ghost Plate Cowboys exposed. This is this Daily Mail investigation. And that, you know, speed cameras snapping away, and apparently when they take a photo of these particular number plates, apparently 1 in 15 of the cars that they take these snaps of, they can't read the number plate. Okay, these are unscrupulous number plate sellers. One reporter was able to buy a set of ghost plates from a DVLA registered supplier which failed to make any checks to verify they were actually the car's registered owner. Now, the problem with this, and it's all fine and dandy, you know, if you're trying to avoid being nicked for a 20, it's not even fine and dandy, but if, you know what I mean, if it's 23 miles an hour and a 20 mile an hour, you think, oh, you know, am I really a crim? Do I really have to pay this fine? Do I really have to go on a course for this? I suppose yes is the answer. Don't drink and drive, folks, you know, all that stuff. It's very important. But when you're transporting young girls from one town to another with grooming gangs, etc., which is still going on, you know, this thing which is being investigated is not being investigated. There's a public inquiry, there's not a public inquiry. It's people are sitting on their hands while this thing is still going on. It's going on everywhere. You know, we have a lawless society. You know, they are transporting people around, aren't they? Or at least there's the threat that that could happen. And if you can't stop a car because you can't read the number plate, because you can't judge where they're going from one town to another, that is serious. Researchers from Cranfield University found another layer of stealth when they tested these males' plates in a specialist lab with all but one character made of transparent material, so they can even remove one of the critical letters or numbers so that you can't really identify it. Startling images showed the plates appear blank apart from a single letter when photographed in anything other than dazzling daylight, and the true ghost plates obtained by the mail were almost entirely invisible when photographed under infrared light, which is used by road cameras at night or in low visibility. You know, kidnapping and other such terrible incidents. You need to track people across the country. Having
been doing this type of job now for 3 or 4 years, I genuinely believe the most harrowing thing I've had to cover at any point is the grooming gang stuff. It's the single most disturbing issue this country faces right now internally that's just not getting the correct attention. The idea that these plates could be used to help these people get away with this, for me, is a huge problem. And as much as, like you say, at the end of the hour we had a bit of a joke and a giggle about 23 and car parks and stuff like that, this is a serious issue. And of course, underlying all these things is always a much wider, sinister, serious issue. What do you do, though? I mean, because they're always one step ahead. We are so sluggish, our police, our system, that, you know, we're finding out. I'm finding out about this today, really.
Yes.
I think I heard about it last night in the news round last night, and then I'm reading about it today for the first time. This has probably been in place for years. There's probably you know, our viewers and listeners out there could probably tell us that this has been going on for 3, 4, 5, perhaps even more years, and you know, it's something we've really got to get on top of, much more so the grooming gangs.
Yes, and we don't seem to be getting any justice at all. And the idea that it's finished and happened now that it's in broad daylight is a fallacy. It's going on. There was even talk that it was going on in London. Why should we be surprised that that's the case here? One of the biggest scandals maybe to break is the extent of the problem here in London, where we're broadcasting from. There's a thing on X called doom scrolling, where if you spend too much time on it and you've gone past the doggy pictures on Christmas Day, you come across some really terrible videos. And again, sadly, a flash mob appeared, an anti-Israel, anti-Semitic hate march flashed up at the Westfield shopping centre in Stratford on one of the busiest sales days of the year. Let's have a look at this now. Is that our lot? Oh, it's crashed. Okay, so it's basically people drumming away while you're shopping, bombs are dropping. Get off. Get off. It's nothing to do with them, eh? And it's also nothing to do with you guys either, in your kafirs, your nonsense. There's a ceasefire. The war has notionally ended. Of course it hasn't. It's continuing. The pressure of trying to eliminate Hamas still goes on for the IDF, which is doing the bidding of the world, not quite on its own, but it's fighting a terror threat which is now spreading to other countries because of the consequence of what is going on in Gaza, Paul, and no one stops this. Part of the threat of going shopping now is that you want to cover your kids' eyes, or indeed stay out of the way of potential fights that might break out in the streets. These are flash mobs. This isn't organised, and they just spread out.
I've seen the video, and it is difficult to watch.
It's difficult to watch.
It's Boxing Day, there's family, there's children there. It's already stressful enough, let's face it. That was in Westfield in Stratford. And we're in danger now of creating a Northern Ireland-esque sectarian society within the UK. We're splitting people down religious lines. These people here very much are asking people to support Muslims over Jews. Let's not
Muslims over Christian, Muslims
over Christians, Muslims over Jews. Let's not beat around the bush. Let's not pretend this is some caring movement.
Yeah.
These people aren't particularly caring. They're like just up oil. They've created a situation now where people, they'll not look any further than what they see at Westfield, and they'll go, I'm not going to support this lot. I don't care what their campaign is. I'm not going to support this lot. And we're splitting people down religious lines in a way we never have done in this country. And the idea that the people of Westfield yesterday have any responsibility for what's going on in the West Bank is for the birds. It's not their problem whatsoever. Now, arguably, you and I talking about this is exactly what they want. And you and I getting maybe a little bit red under around the gills about this is exactly what they want. But at the end of the day, I think they're not doing their campaign any good whatsoever. And it'll go the same way as Just Stop Oil. I'm not prepared to live in a sectarian society where we are told that this is good and that is bad, and that if you don't support this and you do support this, you are bad. It's nonsense. If you come across that anywhere in life, be suspicious of it.
Exactly. And if you're sort of tempted by these kafir waving drum monkeys, have you seen the societies that they support? Have you seen the success of them? Have you seen what they are? Do you know what? And have you seen, for example, Arab nations that fight this, that are against it, and the skyscrapers and progress that exist in those countries? Yes, because there are Muslim Arab states who are firmly against this. If you didn't know that, that's because you don't know enough about this war. So, for example, Muslim Brotherhood is banned in the UAE, very simply because they are a threat to their kingdom and their stability, and they are one of the most stable nations, collection of nations in the world. If you don't believe me, take a closer look at the UAE and Bahrain and even Saudi Arabia, which is going through a form of renaissance. A few hiccups along the way in the Saudi Arabian country, I think, but you know, they're doing a bidding towards at least a notional Western hemispheric support. There's a lot of negotiations going on with Donald Trump. It was a shame that it crashed earlier, but let's just see if we can get these drum monkeys back on. Come on, Westfield. What were they saying there with Westfield?
Something to do with Westfield. Yeah,
Bye-bye, Westfield?
Come on, Westfield, I don't know.
No, yeah. There's only one team over that side of London, isn't it, eh? The
Yes,
Carrot and
good
Blues,
point,
isn't
yeah.
it, eh? Oi, oi. No one goes oi, oi anymore because there's been too much population transfer.
Yes, particularly in that part of London.
Oh, we're laughing at a disaster. Anyway, but no one's stopping it.
No.
Hello? No one's stopping it. I don't want...
Have you seen the way they deal with this in Germany?
think that I can't go to Westfield in Stratford, you know, but now I don't think I will. There's a slightly nearer one for me, but I don't want to think that I can't go to another part of London lest I be bombarded with live music that I wasn't prepared for.
Sure. And by the way, there's a whole Jewish community out there that are entirely intimidated by this. And there have been some very sinister goings on, you know, driving through communities, shouting all sorts of obscenities out the window, and the police have done absolutely nothing about it. So let's not forget that there are victims of this itself. You know, because what they've said is anyone who is Jewish or anyone who is in any way support of Israel is bad. This is the division line that they have drawn. And obviously, you know, like you say, there are two Westfield centres in London, and if you draw a line between the two, right in the middle there's a huge Jewish community. And nobody's really talking about
Plus
that.
about 6 million people.
Yes.
I mean, it's a big plot of urban landscape.
Yes.
Which, by the way, since I've come to London, has progressed enormously. I mean, the amount of progress in London has been extraordinary since the millennium. The place has become truly international in a way that it was a bit international beforehand. It has responded to the globalised world and has engaged a huge pool of talent from all over the place. Unfortunately, over about the last 5 years, a lot of those people are leaving, and I think that's really, really bad for the city.
Yes. Do you remember we used to complain about Polish plumbers? I mean, what we'd give for Polish plumbers now, Johnny.
Absolutely. And while we're at it, Romanians and Kosovans. Isn't it marvellous?
Jumpers for Cocos.
Can you imagine, like 25 years' time, we'll be reminiscing. Do you remember before they assimilated? Wasn't it marvellous? Was it great? Do you remember Ladislav? Oh dear! Oh no!
You gotta laugh,
you gotta laugh, or else you cry. It's a football song, isn't it?
Yes.
Right now. So it started in Parliament, didn't it? Where the customs union was being talked about. The idea that we can be a bit in and a bit out, and we can shake it all about. A lot of people who were Brexiteers are slightly more pragmatic about us being in the EU customs union because of the regulatory basket case that it's creating in trying to export light bulbs to France or widgets or all sorts of other stuff. So now the TUC boss has told Starmer, because they feel he can be pressurised, that whilst we can maintain a kind of Brexit, that we could be part of the customs union. Where is the argument on this, Paul? Is it good? Is it good to be pragmatic?
Look,
or should we stick to our Brexit guns?
So, I voted Remain and then became Brexit sympathising afterwards. Yes, I did vote Remain.
Go on, tell us about that evolution.
So, for me, it was all about not really being educated enough to understand why I would vote to leave.
Right.
The status quo for me...
So it was a conservative decision.
So the status quo for me was something I understood, and I thought, why not leave it that way? I changed my mind, I very much changed my mind, when I saw the reaction to the Brexit vote, to the democracy. And I'm someone who's always understood that the change for Brexit was always generational. We weren't going to see anything in this 10-year period. We might not even see anything fully in the next 10-year period. We'd see it generationally. And one of the advantages of being in Brexit was untangling ourselves. So in 20, 15, 20, 25 years' time, we could become more sovereign and manoeuvre ourselves in a much more independent way. Broadly speaking, Brexit's not been the disaster we've been told it would be, by the way. Remember all the sorts of things that we were told, of planes falling out the sky and you know, all sorts of weird and wonderful things we were told would happen as a result of Brexit that just have not happened at all. I don't think it's been the terrible mistake. I think those who truly wanted Brexit haven't got it, and I think rejoining the customs union would tie us in a way that would mean that we would never, ever get a Brexit. And let's not mistake ourselves here. There is no Brexit's a Brexit. The European economy is in real terms better off than the UK economy. They've got a slightly lower inflation. Our inflation's coming down largely because of the mismanagement from the recent Labour government. But we have a higher unemployment rate slightly, particularly amongst the 18 to 24-year-olds. But what's going on in terms of our economy was going on irrespective. That we could break away from that by making independent decisions, but we can't do that if we rejoin the customs union, because the customs union comes with all sorts of other conditions.
Yes.
You don't just jump in and go, oh yeah.
Well, complete governance of our society.
Exactly. So we are... I don't think that we should. I've talked about Erasmus recently. Erasmus seemed like a good idea to me. Why wouldn't we allow young people to go and exchange themselves? But in terms of the customs union, absolutely not. We must protect... OK, we'd have to have another referendum. We'd absolutely have to have another referendum. And who would want to open that right now?
No.
Do you know what? If you look at the key concerns of people...
We can't have a referendum at this time of schism.
No.
It would be such a terrible...
I think...
toxic debate, and it would be so wide and it would get so racist and so sectarian, and church leaders would say you've got to do this and Muslim leaders would say you have to do that, and just we cannot have that for now. Let's try and, you know, be nice and cool, Trig, about stuff.
Nice and cool.
Nice and cool.
There's no fall through the bar. We left in 2020, we voted to leave in 2016. We get on with it. It's not as bad as people that wanted us to believe it was going to be bad is. It's not as good as it can be.
Yes.
And the only way it's got a chance, it needs to be given a chance, is to stay outside the customs union. Let's not look. They're no friends of ours. The people who run the customs union, no friends of ours whatsoever. They're still very much jilted by the fact that we had the gumption to leave.
Yes.
They're not going to allow us back in easily. No. If we went back in, we'd be tied much tighter.
On many issues.
So, look, let's stay out. Let's work on the relationship. Fair. OK, they need to chill out. We're here, we're not going anywhere. You can still trade with us, but you're going to have to get rid of a lot of the red tape. It's going to take someone to come in and do, maybe Farage. If anyone can deliver a Brexit, Nigel Farage can deliver a Brexit.
Well, indeed. He was a conviction politician of the first water when it came to issues of Brexit, including leaving the customs union. More of that debate and discussion right after this short break. Do stay tuned.
for 2026. It's going to be the only way to start your day. It's the home of common sense. It's where the nation can come to speak about the day's news. It's the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. You know who you are. You get up, you graft, you work hard. I'm here for you. We want to hear your side. Promise you one thing. It is where the nation can and will come to talk. The Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show, weekdays from 6 a.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A warm welcome to your weekend breakfast show. It is the Morning Glory, and I am Jonny Gould, and he is Paul Cox. And we've had a couple of very interesting replies here to what we were talking about before, and this is from the street, from the real world. Thank you, Steve Green. Steve has tweeted me, Johnny, ghost plates were a thing over 20 years ago. I remember boy racer types buying them even back then. And then he says, I think the drug driving limit should be 0. There's so much skunk being smoked around here that you smell it on every busy street.
That's true.
So, you know, that with, you know, by saying these things and for me being given this information, Steve, I'm going to start doing that with my hands, which is what I'm doing for your TV benefit and from radio. I'm just putting my two hands together in a sort of Michelangelo kind of way. Right. Vernon in Staffordshire wants to join the debate on what we were talking about before, about the Customs Union. Welcome, Vernon. The hardest working man not in showbiz.
Compliments to the season, Johnny.
Compliments to the season to you, Vernon. Lovely to speak to you again. How are you?
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Despite living in this very challenging country of ours, Johnny.
Dystopian, Vernon.
Really? He's out of the stretch, Johnny. He's out of the stretch. Johnny, we must never, ever, ever consider joining the Customs Union, ever. Because it's one more step to rejoining the EU.
Right.
I don't trust politicians an inch. If you give them an inch, they take a mile. We have a liar, have a Prime Minister currently. Happy for him to sue me. I've got all the evidence I need. The reality of it is we cannot believe one word. And let's put another slant on it. Why would you want to join Europe? Europe is even more of a basket case than the UK. I've recently back from Europe, and it's a mess. You think the UK is bad, Johnny? Europe is in a dreadful state.
Paul?
Yes, look, Vernon, good morning. Hope you're doing well. Give Vernon a show. I completely agree with him.
Yes, he does have a show.
He does, does he?
Yeah, when he's on with me.
Oh, he's your mate? I didn't realise we were talking.
Well, no, he's not my mate. Well, he is my mate. It was just that I always give him the time of day. Always give Vernon a good moment.
Wise words. I completely agree. As I said before, the idea of now rejoining a customs union that we have left, and rejoining a group of people that hate our guts, is going to come at a cost well beyond where we are now. And Vernon's absolutely right. It is a basket case, Europe. There is no advantage. It's not like they got this bastion of paradise, of trade paradise, which we can go and join. We still are an incredibly important trader in the world, and if someone gets to grips with it properly, we can make the best of it on our own, and they can join us if they want.
Gents, a commercial way of trading in the world is under WTO terms. It's worldwide known. It's very, very simple. We should never have had this half in, half out. I regrettably was one of those Boris fans, and Boris did nothing for Brexit. He did absolutely nothing for the quality of life in this country, I would have to say probably he was an absolute abomination as a Prime Minister. All I would say is that we are in a dreadful, dreadful mess in this country. And at this moment in time, just one message to everybody, just be a little bit kinder. Have a little more patience. Be a little more kinder. Forget race, forget religion, forget creed. Just be nice to people.
Yes.
And you know what? It's quite amazing what effect being nice. And above all else, one message to politicians. Just tell the truth. Just tell us that you are not going to follow your mandate. Just tell us. I mean, the lady I feel really sorry for this Christmas is Lady Starmer. Can you imagine being married to that snake, that liar, that cheats? It's just, the great thing is, Johnny, he doesn't support our football club. Arsenal have my commiseration. Keir Starmer's up. You know what?
Oh, right.
Keir
Yes.
Starmer's up. We can't say it on national radio.
No, we can't. We say it at the darts, and they tried to stop it from going out on Sky TV.
But can you imagine, genuinely, Johnny, he does everything against his wife. It's shambolic. But anyway, Johnny, there's only one Jonny Gould.
Oh, that's nice.
There's only one Jonny Gould. Love you, Johnny.
Love you,
Have a
Fern.
great New
Mate,
Year.
mate, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, mate. And I do love a good sing-song, especially not sponsored by a nice glass of whiskey where it really would have gone into a second verse there, I'm sure. That is Vernon from Staffordshire, always welcome here, as you are, on 0344 499 1000. Time for a voice note. I do love your voice notes. You've had time to think about it. You've pressed the button and you've dialed 0344 499 1000, and Perry has done so.
When it comes to war, sometimes I really do wonder whose side this government is on. When you think about it, Keir Starmer's made everyone feel like this country ain't worth fighting for. Ed Miliband has made sure we can't reuse our oil wells. Keir Starmer and Labour Party have made sure that they're shutting down all our industrial capabilities, like shutting down our factories that produce steel. Whose side is he on? He's crippling the farmers, which farmers you need if you're going to war. Whose side is this guy on? It is a disgrace. You ask me, it's like a Russian. Oh, it just winds me up. This guy, I can't stand the man. Get him out. Put someone in who's got stance, who's got power.
Well, listen, Perry, thank you. And I do enjoy the passion of your position without losing your powder, without losing your rag. I wonder that too. I wonder what borderless ideology he stands for. I also worry about these things, Paul.
Yeah,
they're so ideological. They've forgotten who they're.
Well,
representing.
exactly. They aren't who. He's lied to absolutely everybody. But he lied to his own party. He came in after Corbyn, said he'd be sympathetic towards Corbyn, and obviously wasn't. I mean, I'm glad of that. He also was in Corbyn's cabinet, so stood by everything that Corbyn said, which was obviously a nonsense. You know, sort of stuff you think up when you're on LSD, and now he's lying to absolutely everybody because the guy has no backbone. The only thing we know he ever really supported was Marx, communism, and he's part of the Fabian Society, I believe. So, and by the way, the Fabian Society, a lot of people don't really understand. They think this sort of slowly change society over time. They also believe that our population should be much reduced, that we have too many people in this country, and that we could reach some sort of paradise if we're able to reduce the society numbers.
In a way of Pol Pot or Hitler? I mean, what kind of way do we reduce people?
I'm not sure how you would do that. And by the way,
Stalin?
There isn't a single policy in place at the moment that reduces anything. Everything goes up.
Yes.
Everything goes up. The population's gone up, and our culture's dead. It really does worry me.
No, we can be the change, Paul.
We can. You and I, Johnny.
But I really mean it. It starts with you and I, and you.
Yes.
Dear listener, viewer, you know, be the person that you want to be in a functioning society, even if it hurts when you look out there and think, this isn't quite the place that I remember or grew up in. There are still lovely moments out there to be enjoyed. Like, I'll give you an example, right? Wasn't the BBC an absolute pleasure only on the 25th of December? Right, because basically all the news team were on holiday, so they only had the breakfast show, and they were very deferential because, of course, the top story is our king talking about Christian values and the pilgrimage and other such Christian ideas of Bethlehem. And he talked about unity in a way that, you know, some of it was a bit kind of a little bit political, as Ben Elton might say, but it was still a good message from a head of state that won't cause ructions like perhaps Trump or Macron will in their country. And then it was full of Peter Ustinov films and Bing Crosby. It was like the BBC we remember in 1977.
Great times. Great times. I shared a Morecambe
and then it went back to
clip.
normal later.
Well, of course it did, because it's entirely co-opted at the BBC. It's blinded by its own propaganda, the BBC. This 2025 will probably be the year that signalled the death knell for the BBC.
Or
as
the
we
reform
know it.
knell.
Yes, the reform knell. Yeah, they're going to have to change things in order to survive.
Yes, they are. They're talking about the famous sun. They're going to have to get smaller.
Yes, they will.
I mean,
they will have to.
That would be a good thing. Listen, it has been an absolute pleasure.
It really has,
to
Johnny.
have a chat with you, Paul, here in our studio. Paul Cox, comedian. He's been here for 90 minutes plus time added on for stoppages. And will you come back soon, Paul?
Johnny, I'll come back whenever I'm asked.
You'll come back. And we didn't even need 10 seconds starting from now, as Nicholas Parsons used to say at the end of Sale of the Century. He said yes, he's coming back very soon. I hope I am. This is Jonny Gould. And by the way, Simon Calder, that intrepid traveller who knows absolutely everything about travel, was stuck in the most beautiful of places yesterday, the Lake District. He said that I was going to try and get to the train station, but even then I couldn't go till next Tuesday. Is he still there? I bet he is. You'll find out after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Book that date about this time every weekday morning. Monday to Thursday will be the Jeremy Carr Breakfast Show, and then Mark Dolan will be doing your weekend things starting from Friday right through till Sunday. Who knows? I may be even standing in for them one day if I play my cards Right. A very good morning to you. Meanwhile, it is the 27th of December. I'm Jonny Gould. This is Weekend Breakfast here on Talk. And we've got a little bit of a travel soap opera now, because yesterday, the intrepid traveller, who's always in a different place, was in a most picturesque and beautiful part of the country, the Lake District. But Simon Calder appeared to be stranded there in what looked like a picture postcard kind of way. And as we welcome Simon now, I'm predicting you might be in the same place.
Yep. Good morning, Johnny. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I am exactly where I was yesterday. It's not quite so light yet. You can possibly see behind me, if you're watching, the first of the dawn's light. Not yet by any means sunrise here in the northwest of England, but beautiful Lake Windermere. Beautiful Windermere behind me. We can't call it Lake Windermere. Is as tranquil as could be. A very light breeze, and the expectation is that yes, there will be beautiful weather, which is just as well because I am still trying to get out. Actually, yesterday, Johnny, after we talked, I went out and about, and there were buses running, not till the afternoon, but they even put on open top buses to give the best possible view of the Lake District. Of course, if you caught a bus to the station, that wouldn't do you any good at all, because there were no trains certainly running in this part of the country, only very few elsewhere. And those trains are now starting up today, but very, very patchily. So the UK's busiest station, London Liverpool Street, that's going to remain closed right up until early January. And that's also going to mean that, for example, links to and from Stansted Airport are disrupted. There is going to be the possibility of travelling on the Elizabeth line, the main east-west line through London, out to Stratford station and boarding trains there, but it's going to be messy. Another really busy station, London Waterloo, not open today or tomorrow. And then the West Coast main line, oh my goodness, big junction replacement south of Rugby, which means that there's no direct trains from the West Midlands, Northwest England, Southern Scotland to London Euston. Elsewhere, we've got the usual crop of overrunning engineering works, staff shortage, points failures, signalling failures. So if you are relying, like me, on the trains today, please check in advance.
Oh, wow. And how in London do they decide which stations should be closed on some of the busiest transport days of the year and some remain open? For example, London Bridge is open and London Victoria is open. You're telling me Liverpool Street and Waterloo are shut. How have they made these decisions? It seems rather arbitrary and not really joined up.
Well, unfortunately, you have to go back to the kind of first half of the 19th century when I wasn't reporting, but the Victorians created this fantastic rail network for us. We haven't really done much to it. And so every so often you just need to renew the stuff. You need to basically just put in new kit. And Network Rail takes the firm view that the time to do this is when you've got the lowest number of commuters, because many of the people who would use London Liverpool Street and London Waterloo are people who are going to work typically in the City of London, and therefore, since quite a lot of them won't be going back until Monday the 4th of January, the idea is, is it Monday the 4th or Monday the 5th? I think it's the 5th, isn't it? Anyway, the first Monday in January, they will be that they won't even notice. Of course, it's people who perhaps listening, perhaps watching, who only make journeys by train at peak times for family visits, who are going to be thinking, every time I try and catch a train, it never works. I'm going to give up. I'm going to just drive instead, which is a big problem. And there's quite a strong lobby for saying, look, if you've got to do things that disrupt travel, then please kind of choose a time, for instance, in August for instance, when you're going to have good weather, you can really have a good go at it and close the whole line for 2 weeks, give people plenty of warning, and that way things might get better. But bluntly, we've got a hugely overstretched and under-maintained rail network, and they're just scrabbling to catch up. And the aim is, honestly, Johnny, to try to make journeys better for everybody, but it means that there's a lot of pain, particularly at this time of year.
Short-term pain for long-term gain, not to mention the successive Saturdays of football that there have been. There was a big championship programme yesterday, and today we focus on the Premier League. So people make journeys of hundreds of miles. And if you go like on a Saturday night to your average major line station, you have all the leisure trips, all these stag nights and hen nights, going, you know, all and sundry all over the shop in fancy dress, going off to concerts and everything.
Speak for yourself, Johnny.
Yeah, that's just me at the weekends. No, but what I'm trying to say is that, you know, prioritising commuters is one thing, but it seems to me that the unintended consequence is it's equally busy on a Saturday night at 7:45, and those kind of people get thrown to the lions in favour of the commuters. They're prioritising certain people over others.
Yep, and that certainly used to be the case, partly because, of course, the bedrock of rail revenue was season ticket sales. You know, knew they would get maybe £4 or £5 billion a year in season tickets. I've just seen an open-top bus go past.
Oh, nice.
That's very impressive.
Give them a wave.
And yeah, a very, very.
Don't you play
very
that competition where you wave to see how many points you get back? I love that game. Go
anyway,
on, Simon, let loose, man.
Yes, so the bedrock of railway revenue used to be the season ticket. That all changed with COVID.
Right.
And travel patterns are changing very much. And now, yeah, exactly as you say, with far fewer people doing those regular commutes. And, for example, Sunday, which used to be completely desolate on the railways, now one of the busiest days of the week.
Yeah.
So we've got to have a proper conversation. And the government, let me give you their point of view, they would say, Great British Railways is going to make everything better. We bring all the trains into public ownership just about, and things can only get better, as they say. I personally think that they are perhaps keeping their fingers crossed a bit too much, and that there are such deep-rooted problems with the railways that simply changing the ownership of train operators, for instance, isn't going necessarily to make everything sweetness and light, but we will see.
We will see, Simon. I mean, one more slight anecdotal reference I'd like to make, which is I've seen over the last 6 months in particular that commuters have returned. We are seeing fully packed trains, really, for the first time since COVID, as offices come to grips with home working and realising that it's not the great panacea. There is mixed working, there is teleworking as it used to be called, but actually there's nothing like being in an office with your pals and working together in a coalescence way.
Oh, very much so. And look, I obviously I spend my entire life on holiday pretending to work, and you know that my excellent colleagues at the Independent never know quite where I am or what I'm doing. But honestly, going in, particularly since you and I are not the youngest people, sorry to break this to you, in journalism, and it is very good to work with people in their 20s, in their 30s, who are so sharp, so good, and help us to kind of keep going and keep focusing. So it's very good, everybody. Yes, get to the office, sit around and drink coffee, have a chat, find out things, learn from each other and build. So yeah, very good point.
Thank you, Simon. I knew I'd asked one too many questions. Thank you very much, as always. Good luck getting out of heaven there, as opposed to hell. It's such a lovely place that Simon finds himself stranded there, the travel correspondent at The Independent. What he doesn't know about travelling is not worth knowing, Simon Calder. And now, Boxing Day sales. They keep telling us that the slump heralds worse to come for the high street, but apparently footfall was up. Shall we try and make sense of Boxing Day sales, the economy in terms of retail? That with Laurie Laird, an economist, after this. Stay tuned.
Brand new for 2026. It's going to be the only way to start your day. It's the home of common sense. It's where the nation can come to speak about the day's news. It's the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. You know who you are. You get up, you graft, you work hard. I'm here for you. We want to hear your side. I promise you one thing. It is where the nation can and will come to talk. The Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show, weekdays from 6 a.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Now, yesterday it was widely reported that shoppers were shunning Boxing Day high street sales amid warnings that the worst could yet to come. Footfall in central London was down 7.7% compared to last year as of 1 p.m. on Boxing Day, according to data from MRI software. The decline was also acute in market towns, where footfall was down 7.1%, while overall UK high streets saw shopper numbers fall by 2.4%. By 3 p.m, figures showed there'd been some improvement, but the numbers were still down by 1.1% year-on-year in market towns and 1.5% on high streets. So what's the real story going on here? Because I woke up very, very early this morning and there was slightly more optimism. Just people are getting up later. Are things better than they said? Are reports of our demise somewhat overrated? Should we talk to an economist about this? It's Laurie Laird. Hello, Laurie.
Good morning.
Good morning, Laurie. Nice to have you on the show. Merry Christmas.
And to you. And look, I'm not surprised about these numbers from London, although they are stark at almost 8% fall in footfall yesterday. But I don't know if you've noticed, but over the entire Christmas period, just taking public transport, London seems empty. I can't figure out where all the people are. It's been, sort of a pleasure getting around London. I'm really absolutely staggered at how few people are around. And this increase in footfall at retail parks sort of is consistent with what my friends say who actually do leave London. They're seeing a lot more activity in retail parks. But yeah, it does feel like the high street has a really bad Christmas. And also, the high street doesn't tend to follow that whole Black Friday thing. That's more an online phenomenon. So they weren't kind of reaping sales from Black Friday sort of stuff. So it does raise some big questions about the retail industry for the year coming. The last couple of months for retail here have been pretty weak.
So what's this about, Laurie? Is it about people tightening their belts, or is there an actual fundamental structural shift in the way that we shop? Laurie, what's going down?
I think we need to wait. I think it's a little bit too early to draw conclusions. One of the big problems was the late date of the budget. And there's always speculation around a budget, but the speculation this year was so feverish, wasn't it? Will there be an income tax rise? Will there not be an income tax rise? And the government contributed to this speculation, exacerbated what we usually do. And I think fears of what could have been in that budget, particularly that income tax rise, had the effect of just creating uncertainty and pushing people to say, wait a second, I don't know what's going on here. I'm going to wait a little bit before I make any big outlay. So it may be that we see things even themselves out over the months to come. UK voters, people here have been saving to a much, much higher extent than has historically been the case. We're looking at savings of between 9 and 10%. This is so unlike what we saw before the pandemic. A lot of economists feel that at some point shoppers are going to, feel a little bit more comfortable. They're going to release some of those savings, so we could see a bit of a consumer boom in the months to come.
Now, the Chancellor announced last month a freeze on income tax thresholds, which will push millions into higher tax bills in the coming years, along with higher taxes on property and savings. While many of these measures, Laurie, will not affect next year, the public may be beginning to prepare by saving more and spending less. And separate figures published by Barclays ahead of Boxing Day forecasted a £1 billion drop in sales spending to £3.6 billion. So the evidence suggests that really what's happening is that we are responding urgently and quickly to the Chancellor's higher tax.
Possibly. I mean, this increased savings rate has been going on for a while. It sort of started after the pandemic. It was as if people saw the pandemic and said, wait a second, this whole concept of a rainy day, which really was, a proverb not that long ago. Once we were in the pandemic, people said, wait a second, this is what a rainy day looks like. I'm uncomfortable. I need to put some money away. So this historically high savings rate has not isn't necessarily linked with this budget in November. I think one of the things that we've seen over the past couple of years, this government has exacerbated this feeling, but the last Tory government did it as well, is this variability in policy. Twice a year, for the past couple of years, we've been getting major changes to the tax code, major changes to the fiscal approach from the government. That sort of confusion leads people to say, wait a second, I'm just going to pull in my horns because I have absolutely no visibility on what the tax code is going to look like a couple of years hence. So it's not just what's happening in this budget. It's also the feeling of that things can change on a dime.
Yeah, that's the thing. We can't really bank on what they're going to do next. And we just need a bit of economic stability because with that comes so many other dividends. I mean, in Labour's recent increases to the minimum wage and the national insurance contributions have also taken a particular toll on high street stores internally, which rely heavily on lower paid workers. And bosses fear that this Employment Rights Act, which includes a crackdown on zero-hour contracts, will further increase red tape and hamper the sector's ability to offer flexible and part-time jobs. It is why the unemployment rate is going up, isn't it? And young people are hard up anyway as it is with the minimum wage.
I mean, what we're seeing with the employment market is not so much people being sacked as people not being hired in the first place. And you're right to point out those new regulations. If you're a small retailer, look, we all tall pollsters, we love the high street. We want to see a vibrant high street. We want to see quirky independent stores. We don't necessarily go to those stores, but we do. No, and I'm guilty of this myself. I love to sit on my sofa and use online retailer in my pajamas. I'm really guilty. Yeah.
But what happens if it doesn't fit when you get it out the box?
Most of them have pretty good return policies, and I think this is something
that's messy, though, isn't it? It's a messy way to shop, isn't it?
But I prefer doing it that way. I'm sorry to admit it, and I feel like and I feel like I'm really letting the side down by not going to a high street. That said, I live in a part of London where there's not much to buy on my high street, but this is something that I've not seen researched or publicized all that well, and I'm very curious about it, is how much companies lose on their return policies. Because honestly, Johnny, it couldn't be easier. Something doesn't fit, you put it back in its bag. Sometimes a courier will come to your house and take it back to the retailer. Other times I walk to a locker that's right across, I have to leave my house, that's right across the road, and somebody collects it. That's got to be expensive, particularly for these low-value items for retailers. I'd love to know how much they're losing for these returns. Certainly ASOS, which is a retailer my kids use, has stopped vending to people, or stopped online business with people who make too many returns. They must be up a lot in the chain. But how long that will last is unclear, but I'm getting away from the point. These new labor restrictions make it much more difficult for small businesses, retailers, small restaurants, pubs. Makes it much more difficult for them to take on people. And these are the sorts of jobs that young kids, use for their first job, their first foothold in the labor market, a Saturday job. And I fear that's becoming a problem, that kids my kids in particular, aren't learning learning how to work and what it's like to go to work.
I was bemoaning this idea that this is all, you know, fine and dandy, but perhaps it should have not been including companies who have 10 or less employees. So, for example, it would give protection for small cafes in high streets competing with the cafe in Tesco.
Absolutely.
It's hard enough being a small operator against a big corporate anyway these days.
And without getting too geeky here, another problem that some of these small independents are facing is that their business rates are going up significantly in the new tax year. A lot of them have had the value of their premises re-rated to the upside in some areas by significant amounts. So that's another way that these small businesses are going to be whacked.
Listen, Laurie, more common sense there from you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. That's Laurie Laird talking about the future of high streets, the future of shopping. What do you do for your shopping? Do you increasingly go online? Do you feel that you still have to physically go to a store and try the pair of shoes on? Or do you do what Laurie does and sort of chance your arm and go to the cupboard, the Amazon cupboard across the street? How do you shop, and is it going to affect the high street permanently? 0344 499 1000. And another dose of common sense from Mike Neville after the news at the top of the hour.
Libya has become a major transit route for refugees and migrants from sub-Saharan Africa, and many of them come through Libya dreaming of getting to the UK, particularly from Sudan, where there has been a civil war waging for the last 2 years. And those asylum seekers or economic migrants who make it from Sudan to the UK have a 99% chance of being given leave to remain. So I spent several hours talking to immigration chiefs here in Benghazi on the east side of Libya. The Libyan National Army has a very good grip on the immigration problem, albeit fighting against a huge crisis with limited resources. There is a very, very clear process of giving people proper health checks, the life-saving care that they need, and then working out where it is exactly that they've come from. Their message to the UK is that you are fueling this problem. You are effectively advertising a great new life for people from sub-Saharan Africa. They actually said, you know, what do you think happens when a guy from Sudan comes up through Libya and makes his way all the way to the UK and gets put in a luxurious hotel and provided with everything? And make no mistake, it is a perilous journey. We see it from the end point. We see the channel crossing as the dangerous bit. But actually where these journeys begin is in the hot desert. Many tens of kilometres have to be covered on foot by these migrants, and as many as 1 in 4 do not make it. That means bodies in the desert. The Libyan authorities are having to recover bodies in the desert. About the UK and how much awareness. Please understand the scale of what we are dealing with here with very, very limited resources. Once again, you know, people come in from charities, from NGOs, they use warm words, and the authorities here told me.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hey, morning. If you've just woken up or just joined us, you're welcome. It's Morning Glory. It's a weekend breakfast show. I'm Jonny Gould. If you've enjoyed the first couple of hours, I hope you have as well, and we've kept you company. And if you want to watch or listen back to it, you can always do that via the YouTube channel. Scroll back or watch again. It's also there on the Talk Radio app, the talkTV app. It's all there for your enjoyment, so that if you've missed a tick and you fancy going back to a lovely 90 minutes or so with Paul Cox, our comedian friend, you can do as well earlier on in the show. 0344 499 1000. But now, I feel we need a dose of common sense, and I know just the man to deliver that for us. Retired Scotland Yard detective, chief inspector, please welcome, as always, Mike Neville. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to you, Mike.
Yeah, Happy New Year. Looking very casual there, Johnny. So I put a tie on today. You see,
well,
I'm not in the vibe.
Well,
I'm
no,
not
it's
in the
okay.
right mood.
I did worry because Paul Cox also dressed like the King and Queen were coming, and I just thought because it's the weekend, you know, I also feel like perhaps I might have let the side down, but anyway, here we are. We both, dressed respectfully for our relative audiences. Now, welcome to the show, Mike. The first thing is that there's a story going around in The Sun that the number of foreign criminals not deported hits a record high, and it's only going up. And the total is even thought to include some offenders who've been out of prison for more than 5 years but have still not flown home. This is nearly 20,000 people released from jail in the UK but eligible for removal are still here. This complacency is so alarming. It's like no one is grasping hold of the nettle because they don't think it's important. I am frightened at the laziness of the people who are supposed to be in charge.
Well, I think you should be more concerned. I don't think it's laziness. I think it's actually a deliberate thing.
Do you?
I absolutely do. I think these people, especially on the left, they think that criminals are victims of society. These are poor immigrants who've come to this country. And you have these ridiculous situations. I was reading the article myself. There's that Jason Furtado, who was from Portugal, involved in all sorts of crimes, should have been deported in 2016, then goes on to murder a 15-year-old at a music concert. And you've got ridiculous situations. I mean, some of it just makes me laugh. You got yourself, there's a German drug dealer to be deported, Salem Hamid. It's just the ridiculousness of these things. But and what we have brought over here so many people who commit so many wicked crimes. And the thing is, I always say this, is my 4 great-grandfathers are either in the trenches in the First World War or in the mine. And if I went round prisons today and looked at all the people there, particularly there for violent crime, how many people would be like me? The best statistic I've read is in 1951, in the whole of London, when London was only 1 million people less than it is now, there were 214 robberies in an entire year in 1951. There are now 214 robberies every 2 days in London. What has changed? We can't carry on like this. We've got to be honest, Johnny. We're bringing some people in here from countries which are violent. The attitude to crime is different, and we need to start deporting people and being strong. But I don't think our establishment really wants to do that.
And you mentioned there the German drug dealer Saleh Hamid. He'd served and he'd swerved deportation because he did not speak German well enough and faced very significant obstacles, which highlights what you say, which is that Starmer is kind of notionally on the side of the Crims. Earlier this year, Jason Furtado was jailed for life for murdering a schoolboy, but was meant to have been deported 9 years ago after serving time for theft and motoring offences. So someone from the Home Office said this government will not allow foreign criminals and illegal migrants to exploit our laws, which is why we're offering reforming human rights laws and the broken appeal system, allowing us to scale up deportations. Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary, says every single foreign national offender who's eligible for removal should be deported. So again, it's this resorting to the law, which means, this will never, they're hiding behind law change. This will still never happen, Mike.
No, well, Chris, look at Chris Philp. He was the policing minister in the Tory government, and how many people did they deport? How many criminals stayed here?
Yeah.
And all of us suffer. I go back all the time to the fact I've got to speak to my 2 youngest daughters about strange men in Bournemouth. Why am I having to do that? It's an absolute disgrace. And you say about Keir Starmer, well, Keir Starmer, it's not just a sort of tacit thing that he thinks that these immigrants should stay. He made a speech as a younger lawyer saying that immigration law was inherently racist. That's the mindset of these people. So the entire establishment is against common sense. You said about common sense at the start, and your viewers and listeners, they will just be amazed that, somebody stabbed somebody, they deal drugs, they kill somebody, they rape a woman, or assault a schoolgirl, whatever else. And they can't believe that the moment that, like, right, this is the day of your release, right, come with us, get on that minibus, out you go. That would be the simple thing. And my view would be, if they want to appeal it, when they get back home, they can go to the British Embassy, I think, oh, you know, I want to appeal. All right, mate, we'll have an appeal and we'll do it there. What happens now is they get money, they get legal aid. Lawyers, of course, benefit from this. Politically motivated lawyers can, one, virtue signal, and two, make a lot of money out of this. And we need a system. We need a change. Like I say, when the date comes, you get on the minibus, you go to the airport, you're shipped out. And if you want to appeal, you go into the British Embassy, wherever you've gone to. And that's the end of it.
Yes, and that's just not happening.
No.
I'm deeply concerned about this idea that we should be preparing for war because, Mike, we have enjoyed in our adult life an unprecedented period of peace in which we've been able to progress, build family lives, you know, operate in a world which seems to be stable and logical, and decreasingly so. I mentioned earlier on in the show that I am old enough, and maybe you are, to remember First World War soldiers when I was a very, very little boy, and these were very, very old men, and I was arrested by this. I wasn't arrested, I was arrested in terms of surprise. This very, very tall old man with one leg, right, and he had medal after medal on his breast, and maybe it was November the 11th, maybe it was Remembrance Day, but I do remember looking at this man with very, very bushy sideburns of a Victorian kind, in Moseley in Birmingham, and he was obviously in his last few years. And we're here again. Russia is threatening us through the binoculars. We can see them from the Shetland Islands. We can see the threat to us. There is a battle over the North Atlantic superiority where Russia is breathing down Britain's necks in terms of control. And now we're told, according to the Telegraph, that school leavers will be trained to fight in war zones as part of a voluntary paid gap year in the armed forces, because the government plans to offer school and college leavers the chance to spend a year in uniform to test whether they enjoy forces life. It's a scheme recommended in the Strategic Defence Review earlier in the year, and part of efforts to solve a crisis in recruitment amid the growing military threat from Russia. On the face of it, Mike, this does seem a good idea, if a sign of the times.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you said about old soldiers. My great-grandfather was alive when I was 6.
Really?
And he'd been in the Boer War and
my
the
goodness.
First World War. He went back for the Second World War, and the sergeant said, "You've done enough, you're not coming in." But as my family, you know, I'm the 5th generation of my family to be a soldier. I was joined the army at 16. I think it's a great thing. But what we've seen since when 1989 happened and the Berlin Wall fell down, politicians thought, "Oh, that's it, we've won. We'll slash the army." When I was in Germany in the army in the 80s, there was 200,000 troops there. We had tank regiments there. Now we've got hardly any tanks. We've got hardly any soldiers. The British Army could fit in Wembley Stadium. Politicians have cut back on this. And so anything that can get and I think joining the army, particularly for a young man, is a great thing. It really does develop you. Gets you away from your mother's apron strings. You're taught discipline and learn how to live life skills. So it's a great thing as a young man to go in the army. The problem is...
Well, we've temporarily lost Mike. Hopefully we'll get him back in just a second. Sometimes these things freeze over. So according to the Chief of Defence Staff, Air Chief Marshal Sir Richard Knighton, he said Britain's sons and daughters should be ready to fight, and called for a whole society to defend and effort the country in the face of Russian aggression. And Defence Secretary John Healey told the newspaper that the scheme would give Britain's young people a real taste of the incredible skills and training on offer among the Army, the Royal Navy and the RAF. I haven't had much connection with the Army myself, Mike Neville, but when I have seen these young men in uniform, I have been extremely impressed with their discipline. And one of the perhaps unintended consequences of young men and women serving in a gap year would be the improvement in society, that perhaps when they left those colours, those who didn't want to take part in the army later in their lives, they would perhaps care for the environment that they live in, the society. It might actually help us create a grist of a new understanding of society that we so badly need.
Yeah, absolutely. The army does a great thing, especially, as I said, for young men. But my concern, I think I broke away, the signal went, but the concern I have is we had 2 or 3 decades of children being taught to be ashamed of their country, and the British Empire was a wicked thing, and Britain's done all these evil things. How can we expect young people to want to fight for the nation if their heads are full of these lies?
Yeah.
What we need is people who are proud of their nation. If we look at the soldiers that went away, particularly in the First and Second World War, they were deeply patriotic. They're often fighting for them, you know, for their, not for the king, for their mates. You know, you've got the battalions like the Accrington Pals. The reason they all fought together so well, they all came from the same place. They all believed in the same thing. They all came from the same streets. We've lost all this. You know, as the Prime Minister had to admit and then tried to retract it, we've become an island of strangers. How can you expect strangers to want to die for each other? It's these things have got to change. As particularly the education of young, they've got to be taught to be proud. All the wonderful things that this nation has achieved. Twice we've given our youth to save Europe and the rest of the world. Yes. You know, we stopped, you know, you keep going, they bang on about slavery. We're the only people who ever stopped slavery and used our armed forces, the Royal Navy, lost lots of men stopping slavery. We need to, you know, as I've said to you before, I said to you the other day, my grandfather liberating Belsen concentration camp. These are the wonderful things that the British Army, the British Armed Forces have done throughout the world. And we need, the children need to be educated about this, and then they might want to fight and die for this country. Because the moment you sign on as a soldier, you're signing to say, I will die if need be. And that's the harsh reality of it. You know that when you're a soldier, and so why are you going to die for something that you don't really support? It's just, that's the problem.
If this British government had a slightly more mature and grown-up relationship with Israel, it would see the generational relationship with conscription, with the idea that these people don't want to go to war, but they know that at the age of 18 or perhaps 19, they will go into the army, and they'll go in for 3 years until they're 21, and then until they're maybe 40, they'll serve an annual part of national service, which is truly the grist of their nation, because they understand, and maybe Britain, God forbid, might also soon understand, that there is an existential threat. There is a huge price to pay for peace. And we have been so lucky, you and I, Mike, by dint of the fact that we were born, I think, in the 1960s together, that we have really generated the fruits of this benefit that our grandparents and great-grandparents gave before us. And I mean, it lives in me, obviously, Mike. And, you know, our ancestors, your ancestors, helped save my ancestors, you know, on one side of the family, and the other side of my family is English. But it's this thing that, you know, there's been a disconnect because of the peace dividend that we've enjoyed in the younger generation, and this is a bit of a wake-up call.
Yeah, absolutely. We wasted that peace dividend. You can't have it where you just totally think that's it, we've won, scrap everything. It's absolutely ridiculous. And just little things, you know, you see the Navy today, 2 aircraft carriers, which cost, you know, billions and billions of pounds. I was watching the other day, a bit of history, the Battle of Midway. In 10 minutes, the Americans sunk 4 Japanese carriers. You know, so we've got 2 in 10 minutes. What's that going to take? 5 minutes then? You know, and our Navy used to be so wonderful, a wonderful organisation. How many ships we had before? We had, at the time of the Second World War, we had something like 20 times more ships than the Kriegsmarine, the German Navy. Look at us now. We can't. This is an island nation. We should have a strong Navy. But what I always think is, every time you take one place away from the Army, the RAF or the Navy, you take away one chance of a working class lad achieving. And it is the wider benefit. Not only do you have somebody who's defending this nation, you have somebody who's developing, learning, discipline, breaking away from that council estate where you come from. You're learning about your nation, how you contribute to it, you're proud of you. And that filters back into your family as well, so it has a wider impact. But the politicians, what they do is count beans. And I remember being away, and I was on an army camp, and there was a load of lads there from what was called 10 Battalion Parachute Regiment, which is a reserve battalion of paratroopers, all from Croydon, which is Croydon's got its problems. And these lads have been rifted around, shouted at, and actually, when you've been through training, you can say, "Oh, I'll go for my breakfast and laugh at this." But that battalion was then cut to company strength, so a quarter. So those young men who would have been in that, would have been disciplined, had a purpose in life, pride in their country. They're not doing that because somebody counted beans. Oh, we don't need that anymore. And it's a tragedy, really, and it's going to take a long time to get back. And do you know what, Johnny? I don't think we've got long at all.
Well, I'm really sorry to hear that, and I do recognise exactly what you're saying about the access to mobility. I mean, there are even parts of my upbringing, and I was a lot more fortunate than many others, but I just sometimes think that if I'd been born in a different place, if I had different access, I might have been something different. Not that I'm unhappy with my lot, but I do think about these things. And when I see kids crossing the road out of school in Birmingham, if I ever go back to my old city, I think, what's going to become of these kids? They don't have the chances that I have had. So I do worry about those things. Mobility, social mobility, giving people an opportunity from wherever they come from is an absolutely vital part of our society, and at our peril if we don't give them that opportunity. We're going to take a short break now, and afterwards we're going to talk about Sadiq Khan claiming that Donald Trump is jealous about London. Yeah, the New York tycoon is jealous of London, says Blur versus Oasis. Sadiq versus Trump. The latest episode follows this.
Brand new for 2026. It's going to be the only way to start your day. It's the home of common sense. It's where the nation can come to speak about the day's news. It's the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. You know who you are. You get up, you graft, you work hard. I'm here for you. We want to hear your side. Promise you one thing. It is where the nation can and will come to talk. The Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show, weekdays from 6 a.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
And it's Jonny Gould in the chair till 10 o'clock. We've got Phil Dave coming up after the news at 10 o'clock, but not before we've chewed over the latest stories with former retired Scotland Yard Detective Chief Inspector Mike Neville. Mike, this has tickled me here. I've got to try and get used to calling him Sir Sadiq Khan, but no, never mind. He's claimed that Mr. Donald Trump, that must be a bit annoying for Donald. He'd like to be a sir, wouldn't he? He routinely attacks incredibly successful London because he's jealous. The mayor of London reignited his war of words with the US president yesterday as he said the capital is safer than any American city. Sir Sadiq claimed that Mr. Trump only attacks the capital because he's so jealous. He hasn't got any global cities in America that can compete with London. Yeah, right, OK. The mayor, who's been in office since, oh no, listen to this, 2016, it's a reality. It's not a nightmare. It is a nightmare. It's true. Also said that MPs who criticise the capital are unpatriotic, as he accused them of attacking London because it's incredibly successful. It's but the latest skirmish in a long-running feud between the Labour mayor and the US president, with Mr. Trump earlier this month branding Sir Sadiq a horrible, vicious, disgusting mayor. Mike, whose side are you on?
I'm with the president on this one, I think. I think many of the viewers and listeners will be. I read Sadiq Khan. He says, London is wonderful because diverse, progressive, liberal and multicultural. And I think a lot of us now are realising that many of those things they're not working at all. And I always, one of the great writers, I think, at the moment is Douglas Murray. Maybe he should be Sir Douglas Murray. But Douglas Murray wrote in The Strange Death of Europe about our capital city, in the sense that he said, if you look at India or China, Japan, all in 100 years' time, that their capital cities will look like India, China, or Japan. The capital cities of Europe will not look like that. And I think that might be a good idea, but I don't personally think it's a good idea. I think the indigenous population should be the main people in the capital city of a country. And so why don't politicians put this to the vote? Because we've never had a say in this, have we? And he tells us that, the ultimate thing for me about London at the moment, he tells us it's wonderful and progressive. And my support for the Jewish community, that people who are Jewish are frightened to go to London to be in the capital city. So it can't be that good, can it? So I'm really with the president on this. London is a mess. I know people who are frightened to go there. Somebody tried to steal my phone. The amounts of thieving.
Picked the wrong bloke, didn't they?
Well, they missed. They got the guy next to me, and I managed to help him out, give him some cash so he could get home. But it's not good. But can I just say, Johnny, on one other thing that I was criticised the other day. My eldest daughter said I was the only she was the only child not mentioned when I was on the TV. I'm going to mention my lovely daughter Jenny now, who was a nurse and a reservist nurse as well in the army. So I've mentioned her now, so I'm not in trouble anymore.
Thank goodness, mate. You can go home now, which is very important. Peace in the house, obviously a very important Jewish tradition as well. You got that right. That's great. But it's something that you said to me which stuck with me, and it's on the Talk Twitter feed as one of many places that we syndicate these clips. And that is that, we can't have diversity and multiculturalism that works if one minority group is attacking another. I thought that was exactly right. And a mayor who has presided over what amount to hate marches, where Jewish people who are either on a day off or going to synagogue can't really walk across the street because they might inflame the pointless anger, causeless hatred that they impose on Jewish people, is a city which is not at ease with itself, and a mayor has got it completely wrong.
Yeah, absolutely, and people being arrested for being openly Jewish. That's how bad it gets, Johnny. My vociferous support for my Jewish friends and colleagues, but I would support anybody. They could be, if it was Sikhs, Hindus, or anybody else who was being picked upon for going there. I would stand by them and say that's not right. So it does show there's something very, very wrong at the heart of government in London, and it's turned into it's changing far too quickly, and that's not good for anywhere. You can't have social cohesion when you have that.
Talking of that, Westfield in Stratford was opened around the time of the Olympic Games in East London. It is a big, huge leisure centre of the modern variety. It's a very upscale shopping centre, but it is everyone's allowed in there. You know, there's leather seats where you can sit down. It's really quite posh. There's marble stairs, but everyone can go. And that was good news until yesterday, when yet another disorganised flash mob attacked one of the busiest shopping days of the year. Let's have a look at this, Mike. Boycott Westfield? Especially not, no. Will not boycott Westfield. It's quite a distance from where I live, but because of that, I think I wanted to go there to determine that Westfield should not be boycotted by anyone, and we should not be intimidated from going to buy our favourite pair of knickers there. You know, we need to go and support, you know, even if it's full of, you know, corporate shops that perhaps we might not go to. I'm darned if I'm going to be told by those drum monkeys where I can go in London.
Well, I think the trouble is, you look at that video, you have to look, not many people look like me or you. We've got to be blatantly obvious, you know.
Well, some of them do, don't they, Mike? Some of them are these, you know, posh double-barreled sorts.
Middle class foolish.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's plenty of those colonialists there.
Yeah,
you know.
But people are seeing these things and they think, what is happening to the country? We welcome people, we welcome guests, we welcome people who come here to work hard. But we've just, as we've discussed about the foreign criminals, we've just let too many people in here who either want to commit crime or for some reason want to come here and hate the place that it is. It can't carry on like this. But we have a government that is committed to this cult of multiculturalism, and it will continue on with that cult until it's a religious fever. They will not change it because they believe in it with their hand on their heart, and they're not going to change. So we need change in this country, but it isn't coming fast.
Now, for about the last 40 years, we have been pushed towards pedestrianising high streets. I mean, it kind of began in the late 70s and the early 80s, and now they want to do Oxford Street. And now we're beginning to see flash mobs invade Oxford Street all the way through the buses. And I'm saying now, with all these diversity barriers which are now appearing in Birmingham city centre, one of the saddest sights you can see, to defend a Christmas market that we've got there. It's called the Frankfurt Christmas Market. I think we should re-bus them, you know, actually bring back, because otherwise we're just going to have mobs run amok down Oxford Street instead of what it's there for, which is to buy shoes and buy shirts and go and have a dinner. You know, the pedestrianise it, it's going to be the end of the shopping.
Yeah, absolutely. No, where do the buses go? It's bad enough.
It's bad enough, isn't it?
Bad enough with the buses going through there.
Yeah, maybe they should bring back cars.
Yeah. I don't
less traffic lights and more cars. Maybe the odd speed hump to slow it down a bit so we don't run people over. But this cannot go on. Pedestrianising is now suddenly, after 50 years, beginning to look a little bit obsolete and a bit dangerous.
Yeah, I think that it's the danger, as you say, that crowds can suddenly appear there, commit mass acts of criminality and fly all sorts of flags. We just need a bit of more common sense in this country, and that's what's missing, I think.
Mike, the referee has said that there should be time added on for stoppages. Would you like to stay on and talk about ghost plates?
Oh, yeah, whatever they are. Yeah, yes, I do know. I've read about those.
You've read about those? I knew you would have done. I knew you would have done. Mike knows the news. We're going to talk about the idea that when you're zapped by one of those speed cams, the computers can't always read the number plates because the clever crims are starting to get one over on the officialdom again. We'll talk about that with Mike after this, so stay tuned.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
And Johnny in the chair for Morning Glory. A very good morning to you. Mike is right, Johnny, says Barry. Morning, Barry. Your texts are really important to us. 87222 on the texts, and of course 0344 499 1000. Barry says defence spending is a joke. Money is wasted on vanity projects such as large, slow targets like carriers and tanks that could be knocked out by a 10-quid drone. Bit of an exaggeration, but the point is clear, isn't it? A drone is a very, very powerful tool in modern warfare. Useless rifles, he says. Money needs to be concentrated on the immediate defence of our British Isles, says Barry. Thank you very much for that, Barry. And Mike is with us once more. And there was this story knocking around, which Mike's read about, which is that ghost plate cowboys have finally been exposed. Steve Green tweeted me earlier and said, this thing's been going on with boy racers for the last 20 years to avoid the paparazzi cameras. Number plates are invisible to speed cams, and they're sold by official DVLA registered suppliers, so criminals and boy racers can exploit this shocking loophole. And believe it or not, as many as 1 in 15 cars are now feared to be fitted with so-called ghost plates designed to evade detection by automatic number plate recognition. Mike?
Well, people are going to buy these, aren't they? Because what they're told, the CCTV is there to keep you safe when you get robbed or mugged or attacked or whatever. And then really they use, too often, they use to generate income by catching people parking in the wrong place or driving at, 25 miles. I'm in Wales at the moment, drive at 25 miles an hour in a certain places and you'll get caught as well. So the trouble is the market demands this, but the trouble is, of course, is that these can be used by terrorists. The ANPR system is used, of course, if they're tracking terrorists or very serious criminals, and they're going to invest in these. And they're very easy to obtain. And I was reading the article that the DVLA, they have about 4 or 5 people in the entire country who check on who's making number plates. So they're never going to have enough people to, find out who's making these things. And as soon as they caught one, there'll be 10 more doing it. So this is the problem with, technology. You get rid of the road traffic police, and you think what we'll have is a computer that can do this. But of course, a police officer could read that number plate, and a computer can't. So it's just, again, it shows if you invest too much in technology, then you lose out on the human skills, which is, in effect, reading a number plate, whether it's day or night. And therefore, they can still catch the criminals. But criminals are always one step ahead, Johnny, every single time.
They are. And it is creating a very, very grave national security risk. This is a much more serious point than just the speeding thing, because as you mentioned there briefly, it allows terrorists to slip through the net on long journeys. So, for example, when those Blackburn 4 came down the Finchley Road in North London with a megaphone and decided that we should stay in because we're going to come round and rape your daughters and rape your wives and sisters. And then, by the way, they were sort of let off to go home back to Blackburn to do it again, presumably. That could have been stopped. That could have been stopped. And then, of course, on top of that, and we mentioned Blackburn there's grooming gangs as well, transporting girls from one place to the other. I'm just using my imagination here, but it's extremely likely that could happen.
Terrorist investigations, of course, that they need to know if anybody else is involved, and any vehicle, they can track it all the way across the country. And we saw with the 7/7 attacks, or if there is a serious murder or a child has been kidnapped or something like that, these ANPR cameras can really make a difference. But the trouble is that technology is often too easily fooled. It's like facial recognition technology. If people put a balaclava on or a mask of some kind, it can often defeat them. And what you have is, if you become over-reliant on these things, if you think that technology is the sole solution without having people involved, then that's when you get caught out like this. But a good effort by, I think the Daily Mail did
the Daily Mail did it, yes.
And exposed it. So it just shows how good journalism can make a difference and really force action from the government and law enforcement to do something about this.
Absolutely. We still need proper journalistic inquiry. We can't surrender to social media. We still need people like us, Mike. We still need to be doing this and exposing these big stories to a mass audience. Now, here's another story. Now, when we were a bit younger, it became a real no-no, a social no-no to drink and drive. You know, they sort of, the crew of the 70s, you know, used to have a cheeky, you know, one for the road and all this kind of nonsense. And that sort of started to end in the early 80s when this sort of tolerance towards drink was stamped upon. However, research comes out that those born after us, Gen Zs, are more relaxed about drink driving, it says. The survey of around 2,000 adults found that 37% of Gen Zers believe it was actually socially acceptable to drive when marginally over the legal limit. Now, that compares with 9% of baby boomers and 21% of people across the population as a whole. So this comes now as Heidi Alexander, the Transport Secretary, is reportedly considering cutting the drink driving limit even more as part of the upcoming road safety strategy. So what she's going to do is reduce the limit of 35 milligrams of alcohol per 100 millilitres of breath to 22. Now, obviously, people are driving less these days. There's more Ubers around. There's more cabs. People just don't have the amount of cars they have anymore. But we have to welcome this, don't we? We have to welcome this. That we have to increase this pressure upon people to understand that drinking and driving, well, it'll kill you.
Well, one of the things I think, Johnny, is that if you remember when we were young, they used to have those adverts on the TV, didn't they? You know, you'd have a public information.
That's right.
You know, showing that, you know, what are the consequences of drink driving, you know, the fact that people got killed and all this. And I've not seen anything like that.
Right, it seems to have gone.
You used to have drink driving campaign. The police would come out and say, "Oh, this Christmas we're cracking down on these things," and that's possibly, you know, two of the reasons why this has happened. The second thing is, of course, that young people don't drink as much these days. There's articles about the levels of alcohol consumed, so they're possibly not even drinking. And then lastly, another problem is the rise of drug driving, where people are taking drugs. You know, so people think that's acceptable to have drugs because it's not drink driving. That sort of blurred the lines, I think. So I think if the government are going to really crack down on this, they need to put out those public information films at the cinema and on the TV, wherever, to show people that the consequences of it. Because anybody like me who's been in the police and whatever, you've had to clear up the mess of an awful traffic accident where somebody's been killed or injured because of this.
Have you seen things, without being too graphic, that you can never unsee at incidents like this, Mike?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and I think anybody who's been in the police or who's a doctor or a nurse or the firefighter who's had to cut people out of a car, all those, everybody involved, the ambulance crew who turn up, we've all seen these dreadful things and the consequences of people drinking and driving.
Mike, it's been an absolute pleasure whenever I've had this opportunity to spend time speaking to you on a personal basis, and I hope the audience feels the same way as I do, and say thank you very much for all you stand for and all that you say here on Talk and elsewhere. Mike, thank you. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. That is Mike Neville, retired Scotland Yard Detective Chief Inspector. Love your comments on anything that Mike has raised. What about drink driving being something that Gen Zers, and by the way, if you want to know what a Gen Zer is, it's someone born between 1997 and 2012. Yeah, kids, that's right. Actually, 1997, people are knocking on a bit, aren't they? If you were born in 1997, that makes you, what, 28 years old, doesn't it? And they won't even remember Tony Blair walking into number 10 going, things can only get better. They can. Did they get better? Well, they did for those born between 97 and 2012. Say that again, Dave. The millennium bug, that didn't exist, did it? Blimey, we were all scared about that. 034, it didn't happen. 0344499, the millennia happened. 03444991000. OK, so in a moment, we're going to get political as if we weren't before. This idea of Sadiq Khan having a pop at Donald Trump. I hope Donald Trump doesn't bite on this one. He'll go something like, well, he's a terrible, terrible mayor and make Sadiq Khan look famous again. So Sadiq Khan's been at Donald Trump to try and bear bait him again, just as the King and the Prince of Wales have decided that they should go to America and kind of try and close the deal on trade and make Britain and America feel just that little bit closer, because Trumpy likes the King and loves the royal family. So Sadiq Khan saying he's jealous of London because because the US doesn't have a city quite like London. Honestly, we'll talk to Matthew Goodwin Freeman in just a moment on that. Stay tuned.
Brand new for 2026. It's going to be the only way to start your day. It's the home of common sense. It's where the nation can come to speak about the day's news. It's the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. You know who you are. You get up, you graft, you work hard. I'm here for you. We want to hear your side. Promise you one thing. It is where the nation can and will come to talk. The Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show, weekdays from 6 a.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Now, Sadiq Khan's been at it again. I'm still trying to work out whether I can call him Sir Sadiq Khan with conviction, although that is a fact. He was knighted, wasn't he? Anyway, he's been at it with Donald Trump again, hoping that Donald Trump will bite in the Oval Office or behind his desk and say something like, he's a terrible, terrible mayor, and make Sadiq more famous and get him all those likes that he so desperately wants. Because Sadiq Khan has claimed that Trump only attacks him because London is so incredibly successful and that he's jealous. The Mayor of London reignited this war of words with Donald Trump because he said that the capital is safer than any American city. Sadiq claimed that Trump only attacks the capital on that basis because there's nowhere in America quite like London. The mayor has been in office, of course, as we know, since 2016. But Mr. Trump has also claimed that parts of London have become no-go zones for the police, while Vice President J.D. Vance claimed in 2024 that London was becoming an Islamist country. There is that apocryphal tale that's where police have gone to Islamic communities and say, how do you want to be policed? And they'll say something like, well, we don't want to be. So these are issues that we have to worry about. Is Sadiq Khan right? Is Donald Trump right? let's get the opinions of Conservative councillor Matthew Goodwin Freeman. Good morning, Matthew. Merry Christmas.
Morning, Merry Christmas. How are you?
I'm all right, thanks. I'm excited to hear whose side you're on.
Well, I think it won't be difficult. This time last year, I was doing a petition which got 220,000 signatures to stop Sadiq Khan getting his knighthood. So hardly sitting on the fence here. I'm about to rip him to shreds like we all did with Christmas leftovers yesterday.
Yeah, go on. Tell us more.
Donald Trump, you've got nothing to worry about. Council tax in London up 70%, knife crime up 50%, sexual offences 50%, transport 58%, robberies 45%, and that's just the crime. But you know, we've cut 2,000 police officers, and Sadiq Khan, as London's police and crime commissioner, has shut 36 police stations as well. Should I carry on, or is that enough?
I was going to say there's one thing there. Have they not, or are they about to get rid of the police and crime commissioner?
They are. So Sadiq Khan is London's police and crime commissioner, but police and crime commissioners across the country are doing such a dreadful job that Labour are going to get rid of them entirely as a concept.
And there's a conflict of interests here. The idea that it's automatically the police and crime commissioner, which is the mayor, which means that a politically appointed or elected mayor can be in charge of the police, ergo makes the police political, ergo means that we have hate marches every week because basically the mayor tacitly supports the message of them.
Well, absolutely. I was just going to say, we've seen that in London. We have hate marches every single weekend that Sadiq Khan seems to be silent about. Just yesterday, a bunch of pro-Palestinian lot were in a shopping mall on Boxing Day
on Stratford.
And took over.
We've shown the pictures.
But instead, he'll say nothing about them, but he's more than happy to criticise anyone who wears a Union Jack, anyone who protests in our capital. He'll call them far right because he doesn't want to debate them. He's called me, he's called many others. Remember the Unite the Kingdom protest, regardless of who the organisers were, he called all the hundreds of thousands of people who turned up far right. So we need a new mayor of London. It can't come quick enough. And it's no surprise that he's fallen out with his own party anyway.
Tell us about that.
Well, so there are rumours going round that Dawn Butler or Mette Cohen are lining up to replace him at the next mayoral election. Remember, the next mayoral election is 2028, but only about 30% of people bothered to vote in the last election.
It's very, very important to get out and vote. Otherwise, you end up with these kind of people in power.
Absolutely. And the problem is, you see Mayor Khan break his promises. He promised there'd be 0 days of strikes. There's been over 150. He promised there'd be a police front counter in every single borough. He's closing them in nearly every borough apart from 2. He promised that he would look after, like all these Labour politicians, working people, but then he introduced his ULEZ charge, which was to clean the air, despite his own impact assessment saying it would have negligible impact. But if it's to clean the air, why wasn't it running on Christmas Day? Because they gives an exemption on Christmas Day. So it's purely a money grab, and it has grabbed millions and millions from hard-working people in London.
Now, what I would like to see from your particular party is that you guys take the mayoral election a bit more seriously, because I went on the campaign trail with Sean Bailey, who did his very best, right, and really nearly caused a bit of an upset. But Sean wasn't supported, and when he started, he had to do this off his own back. People were saying, Sean who? Because he wasn't really well known. He's become more well known over time by working so very hard at himself. And then it was Susan Hall, who, you know, is, though she's a conviction politician and a very admirable person, she's not terribly electable. Matthew, when are the Tories going to have a real go at this?
Well, the problem is the London mayoral elections are the second biggest devolved elections in all of Europe, just behind the French presidential elections. It is a massive undertaking. So to find a candidate of that level quality is hard. But think, Sean Bailey, London Assembly member, now Lord Bailey of Paddington, that's a high-level person. Susan Hall, leader of the Conservatives on the London Assembly, there against Sadiq Khan, week after week, fighting for justice about the grooming gangs. For Sadiq to even admit that we do have grooming gangs in London.
In London, it's so obvious. Of course we will. But, you know,
So
like
that's
they've
the thing,
become
it's hard to
famous
fi- it is
over
hard to
time.
find a perfect candidate. It's hard to find a perfect candidate. And remember, with incumbency, Sadiq Khan can pump posters out about himself saying how brilliant London is. He can lie and gaslight as much as he wants. He can use the funds available to him. So it's very hard to get rid of him, which is why we hope his falling out with the Labour Party, now maybe realising, do you know what, Sadiq? I think you've had your time. It's time for someone else, whether it's Dawn Butler, Mette Cohen or someone else, would be brilliant, because then it's a level playing field. Suddenly, all of that Sadiq Khan incumbency is out the window.
By which time it'll be 12 years when he will have been the mayor of London. Now, I complained before, and I hadn't really heard this before, I'm introducing this to the debate, the idea that pedestrianising Oxford Street and other places, as we have been now for the last 50 years or so, is now a bad idea, because all we'd get was flash mobs running down the street with their Palestine flags. And maybe it's time actually to reintroduce cars with speed humps, get the buses continuing down there. And Mary in Hemel Hempstead wants to speak to both of us about that. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning. Yeah, they closed ours, I think it was in the 70s. And
Where do you, in Hemel, that you are?
Yes, and it virtually died overnight.
Yeah.
And a few years ago, they tried to close it in Berkhamsted and in Harpenden, and the people sort of went mad, and they withdrew it. And those two towns are only small, but they are flourishing. They haven't got one closed shop in them, and we are inundated with closed shops and a shopping mall that is now almost bare.
Mary, one of the saddest sights is New Street in Birmingham, which now has diversity barriers there to protect its Frankfurt Christmas market, and it's become one of the most insignificant main streets. It was such a showbiz kind of place. My dad told me that in the 50s, New Street was as expensive, and for a while even more expensive, than Regent Street to rent a shop on. You just couldn't imagine that now, Mary. What you're saying is absolutely right. And what do you think to that, Matthew? The idea that actually pedestrianisation worked for 50 years, but now it's become a bad idea because the idea of why we go to town centres, which now includes protest as well.
Remember,
I mean, we need to, punters need to be protected from this.
Well, remember, Sadiq Khan trialled the pedestrianised Oxford Street for one day and had all these food stalls and events going on in the middle of Oxford Street. It actually took retail away from the shops on Oxford Street, so they missed out. And this is a track record. London has had over 1,000 nightlife and hospitality venues close in the last 3 years under Sadiq Khan. This is a track record. He had, remember, his old deputy mayor, Amy Lame, was absolutely dreadful when it came to looking after London. This is not going to go away, but instead he's going to push it through. He'll push through this pedestrianised of Oxford Street, and we will see in years to come it become a place for protest, a square for arguments, a square for crime. I mean, remember, we have to be warning people to put their phones away in our capital city because a phone is snatched something like every 30, 40 seconds. That is London under Sadiq Khan.
Mary, what about that? Well, I don't suppose you'd ever want to venture to London for your shopping?
I'd never go to London shopping. I used to go every Christmas and take the children when they were small to see the London lights. Wouldn't go near it now. Sometimes, occasionally, my daughter would... I'm sort of elderly now, I'm 88, so my daughter will take me up sometimes up to London to the theatre, but very rarely where I used to be a regular theatre goer.
I'm sorry to hear that, Mary. Well, I hope that you can come again and enjoy the theatre. There's so much to London as well, and I'm sorry it gives you such the creeps these days. Matthew, a final word on you before we head to the news. Are you going to stand one day? Are you old enough?
I've had plenty of people suggest that to me. I enjoy holding him to account, frankly. Someone's got to. We need a new mayor of London. He spends his life in armoured Range Rovers with private security. No wonder he thinks London is so wonderful and safe. But the rest of us don't have that luxury. We get up in the morning, we go to work, We come back and it's already dark, and hopefully we don't get our phone nicked in the process. That is the state of London under Sadiq Khan. We need a new mayor of London.
A new change. Well, Matthew Goodwin Freeman, a voice for the future of the Conservative Party. Thank you very much indeed for joining us here. Well, this has been a good hour, hasn't it? And your calls always help these things. We're going to have a few calls in the next hour of the show as well, I promise you. And you can always join us live on air at 0344 499 1000. You can also leave a voice note at the same place. We always have great entertainment, considered thoughts from all of you, so I much appreciate those. 87222 on the text. Press talk or type talk before your comments as well. And you can even tweet us at talkTV and at Jonny Gould. And in the next hour, we're going to go to the political editor of The Sun on Sunday, and it's Kate Ferguson. And we're going to talk about Britain relying on twice as many foreign doctors as most Western countries. Keir Starmer is still destroying the countryside despite the farm tax U-turn, Jeremy Clarkson warns, and we'll explain that in more detail. Has there been enough reform? Has there been enough of a U-turn? Stay tuned here to Talk Breakfast.
Libya has become a major transit route for refugees and migrants from sub-Saharan Africa, and many of them come through Libya dreaming of getting to the UK, particularly from Sudan, where there has been a civil war waging for the last 2 years. And those asylum seekers or economic migrants who make it from Sudan to the UK have a 99% chance of being given leave to remain. So I spent several hours talking to immigration chiefs here in Benghazi on the east side of Libya. The Libyan National Army has a very good grip on the immigration problem, albeit fighting against a huge crisis with limited resources. There is a very, very clear process of giving people proper health checks, the life-saving care that they need, and then working out where it is exactly that they've come from. Their message to the UK is that you are fueling this problem. You are effectively advertising a great new life for people from sub-Saharan Africa. They actually said, you know, what do you think happens when a guy from Sudan comes up through Libya and makes his way all the way to the UK and gets put in a luxurious hotel and provided with everything? And make no mistake, it is a perilous journey. We see it from the end point. We see the Channel crossing as the dangerous bit. But actually where these journeys begin is in the hot desert. Many tens of kilometres have to be covered on foot by these migrants. And as many as 1 in 4 do not make it. That means bodies in the desert. The Libyan authorities are having to recover bodies in the desert. About the UK and how much awareness. Please understand the scale of what we are dealing with here with very, very limited resources. Once again, you know, people come in from charities, from NGOs, they use warm words, and the authorities here told me the only thing that we ever get is maybe a few toothbrushes and some nappies for the babies.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hey, a warm welcome to my final hour here on Talk Breakfast. I'm here until 10 o'clock. Phil Dave then takes the microphone here on Talk after then. We're going to talk about some of the subjects that we've chatted through today already, and I just want your thoughts on them as we develop these discussions. There are many farmers that I've spoken to here on Talk over the last few days that while they're relieved at the way the inheritance tax threshold has been increased from £1 million to £2.5 million, they still say it's not quite enough and that actually it's a bad tax and should be scrapped altogether. And the purpose of having this £1 million thing, which was a very careless thing to do, was that Reeves and the gang thought that it was a tax dodge, that there were unscrupulous investors buying farmland to mitigate their own inheritance tax needs. Well, if that is the case, then you can at least try and close that loophole so that it does become something genuine for farmers to hand through their generations. And it was my privilege to talk to people who've been farmers for 4 and even 5 generations, who've managed to hand their farms through to the next generation, because food security is national security, okay? And as Mike Neville said rather pithily in the last hour, you know, if we go to war, we're going to need our own food, aren't we? God forbid, all these subjects and more. We're talking in a slightly different way to the way that we talked a few years ago, aren't we? And that's why we have the political editor of The Sun on Sunday here. It's Kate Ferguson. Hello, Kate.
Hi, nice to be with you. Happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas. Day 3. Day 3 of 12.
Exactly.
I want to wish people Merry Christmas even on January the 6th next year. When they say, hang on, you shouldn't be saying Happy New Year. No, it's the 12 days of Christmas. What does our true love give to thee on day 3? Do we know?
I've totally forgotten.
Right,
I've gone back.
I'm going to use the university over through the window, and they're drawing a blank as well. 5 golden rings. I'd probably fancy that.
Two calling birds, isn't it? 3 French hens.
2 turtle doves.
Okay.
And an Eric Cantona, I think it was, the Manchester United fans used to sing for a partridge in a pear tree. Now, Britain. Now, you see, this is an interesting story, because if you were annoyed at the resident doctors, as they're now called, about having a strike yet again, one of their significant gripes is that Britain relies twice on as many foreign doctors than average, and it stops British-trained doctors from getting jobs. And when we're investing so many millions of pounds in the next generation of doctors to become our doctors, speaking English to potentially English and Scottish, Welsh and Irish people in our hospitals, and they can't get jobs because we're going abroad to get them, Kate. It just seems a completely disconnected absurdity.
Yeah, I mean, this is the splash on the front page of the Daily Telegraph today, which says that the UK is twice as reliant on foreign doctors as nurses as most Western European countries. So I think we hire about twice as many as France, twice as many as Spain and Italy. And I mean, it just is astounding, because I don't know if your listeners and viewers will know, but we actually cap how many training places we have for British medics. So if you're kind of a bright A-level student and you want to go off and become a doctor, it's incredibly hard for you to go to university and get one of those training places, because we seem to be addicted to hiring them from abroad rather than training our own. But I think the really interesting thing about this story is how out of step we are with similar countries. And Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, has recently recognised this as a problem. He has said he'll go some way into trying to reverse some of those caps. But I just think it is astounding when you think of all the bright, gifted, talented, homegrown talent who just can't get a shot of being a doctor in our own country, yet we're having to hire so many from abroad, which is both, you know, expensive for us, but not fair to those countries who are losing their doctors and nurses.
Absolutely. It's such an injustice. And think of the time that you invest in your young life to become a doctor. Because most of your mates come out of university at 21 years old and go into whatever white-collar jobs they have, and they're already on like 7,500 grand or whatever the number is. They're already, you know, settling down, nesting with their wives, their girlfriends, their husbands, etc., and having their first kid, whereas you are chucking away, you know, your life force in your mid, even late 20s to become a surgeon, and you cannot get on with your life because you can't get a job. Everything about this seems really quite repugnant.
Yeah, I just think it's this really topsy-turvy world. And it does seem that governments of all stripes have stuck to this training cap. I've never really fully understood it. I suspect it's because it's expensive to train doctors and we don't want to pay any more money towards it. But I think when we have a massive shortage of doctors that we're having to go hiring abroad. I just think it's indefensible, and I think if you ask most of that great voting British public, most people won't agree with that policy at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And just looking at this very recent data from the General Medical Council, that's the organisation which regulates docs in the UK. They found that the number has continued to rise in foreign doctor recruitment and now stands at 42%. In contrast, the figure is just 15% in Germany, while France is at 11%. So the influx of foreign doctors to Britain, which now tops 20,000 a year, has come as a UK medical graduate struggles to secure training places. And so now you begin to understand how the junior doctors, now called resident doctors, have come out strike again. They cited foreign medics taking limited speciality training places as one of the reasons for the pre-Christmas strike. I mean, yeah, they had 22% last year and they're on strike again, partly about pay, but this condition is absolutely vital, because if we can't have British doctors, they'll go out onto the international market and we'll lose them. It's totally counterproductive. They'll go to Australia, or they'll go to Dubai, or they'll go to Florida, basically anywhere where the sun shines better and they get better wages. Think about it, it's just mad.
Yeah, I just think it just doesn't make any sense. And the junior doctors, resident doctors as they're now called, I mean, they did say this is one of the reasons they were going on strike. I have to say, I don't really believe that, because Wes Streeting did offer to reverse some of this cap and they went on strike anyway.
Oh, okay.
So I think it is probably a bit more about
militant
pay in reality, a bit more militant at the top. But I do think this is something that actually everyone should agree and can agree is balmy and needs changing. And Keir Starmer, you know, who knows what his future is as Prime Minister, but currently he does have a big majority, and this is the kind of reform he can take and I think probably get cross-party support for.
Yes, he might do. Low-hanging fruit, I think, is what Starmer needs a bit of. It's just a bit of advice from your old mate Jonny. Not his old mate, am I? Now, Jeremy Clarkson has made the papers. All he has to do is go and he gets into the papers. But this is a good one, isn't it? This farm tax U-turn, in other words, raising the threshold of inheritance tax from £1 million, which is just not very much in the modern day, to £2.5 million, is still not enough, according to Jeremy Clarkson. He says that Starmer is destroying the countryside despite this farm tax U-turn. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so this was a kind of funny U-turn slipped out by the government, you know, just days before Christmas, where they increased the threshold. So we've had this row going on for about 18 months now since that first budget, where farmers were going to be whacked with this tax at £1 million threshold. The government has increased it to £2.5 million. But Jeremy Clarkson, who somewhat oddly now is probably Britain's most famous farmer, who's become this kind of mouthpiece for farmers
very
everywhere.
Important. I think he's universally supported by he's not really out of touch with the farmers. He's very much 100% support, isn't he? I mean, I don't think many farmers are against him.
No, he's hugely popular.
Yeah.
And obviously, and very popular with the public, not just because it's Jeremy Clarkson, because of his TV show. But anyway, interestingly, here in The Sun today, he's talking about how that fight, the farmers' fight, will carry on. So I think ministers were hoping that by lifting that threshold, they'd kind of finally bullet that running sore for them, which has seen tractors kind of blockade
I came out the back of my house when they first came down here about a year ago. They were tractoring down, and I came out and gave them a good old sort of fist of support.
Yeah.
I mean, food security is national security.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that the government were totally taken by surprise at just how furious the farmers were and how much public support they had.
And there's this bad blood between the countryside and the town, isn't there? It went back to the William Hague era, where Hague was in opposition and supported them. It's like we've grown apart from our friends and relations in the countryside, you know, these metropolitan sorts with their tertiary educations and silly glasses like me.
Well,
and I'm old enough to have grown up in an urban environment which was turning urban from being rural. There was a farm in our street where basically the farmer, who was a very, very old man, owned the land, which was still idiosyncratically a farm in a street with houses and cars in it. But finally, in the early 70s, he sold the land to make 5 houses.
Yeah.
And so those houses are 50 years old. So I have a real understanding. I see it. There's still a city farm in Finchley in North London, which is a massive field next to £2 million houses. I can't imagine how much that piece of land is worth. It must be worth 100 million maybe. I don't know. How many houses could you build on it? But he won't sell it. And that's an idiosyncrasy of that particular area.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you do have this divide between the countryside and the town. But also, I think it's interesting because Labour's landslide was so big at the last election. They've actually got loads of rural MPs, very unusually.
Interesting.
But it seems that they've just decided to kind of abandon those seats straight away. And some of those rural MPs have become some of the biggest critics of Keir Starmer on his backbenches.
You know, that was very interesting because even while Starmer was serving his very short honeymoon period when he was Prime Minister, because, of course, the murders in Southport happened and he started to call people far right, and then Lucy Connolly happened and all that kind of protest began, very, very early days. People did warn him. By the way, you've got 411 MPs in your estate on Parliament. I mean, that is rife with the potential for rebellion. In ways that perhaps we might not have foreseen. Perhaps we thought because Labour's such a broad church with those on the right of the party and those on the extreme left, that would cause ructions. But actually it's come from these policies which are urban and rural and other things too. Unexpectedly, he's not really in control of his backbenches. There are loyalists, aren't there? How many loyalists out of the 411 are there?
Well, I mean,
is it in double figures?
The really interesting thing, I think, about Keir Starmer's kind of loss of authority within his own party and MPs is actually, you know, a lot of those new MPs were carefully selected. Everyone thought they would be like very loyal Starmerites, you know, would follow their man anywhere. And it's remarkable, really, at how quickly he's lost that goodwill. So I don't think, you know, yes, he's got a big majority and that can always have the safety of rebellion. But I think actually, you know, it's been astounding, really, at how little loyalty he has. And I think a lot of that is down to some of the political decisions he's taken and maybe his failure to really inspire his own troops.
Yes, he's not Churchill when he talks, is he?
He's not Churchill.
No,
I mean,
he's not.
He's
not even Churchill the dog.
He's sort of, if you looked up Churchill, I think the opposite is maybe what you get with Keir Starmer.
Right, OK then. So look, I keep on hearing that Boxing Day sales are down, footfall is down. And then I heard something this morning that said that actually it's up, but we're not buying stuff. And so I did ask a retail expert earlier whether this is the shape of things to come, whether this is because we're going online, or whether people are getting poorer and they're, you know, tightening their belts. But it's not good news if as much as £1 billion worth of Boxing Day sales has declined to 3.6 billion. That is a big, big percentage drop. And that is worrying for Reeves and the potential for tax take on all these sales.
Yeah, so this is on page 5 of the Telegraph today, which says footfall in London was down on last year. And we've had various kind of gloomy predictions about how the Boxing Day sales are going to be a bit of a flop this year. I mean, we will see, I think they're meant to be back down about £1 billion, but we'll see probably towards the end of the week, the end of the fortnight period, exactly what the numbers are like. But I think more broadly, there is a gloominess about the economy. So I think even when people think they can get a bargain in the sales, when we're constantly sort of told that times are tough, we need to tighten our belts, taxes are sky high, growth is flatlined, you think, well, I think even if you've, you know, been given a kind of wad of 20s as your Christmas present, you get nervous about spending it. And that is a problem for the British economy, which is very much driven by consumer sales. So I think if this Boxing Day slump does transpire, that will be more gloomy news. And I think, that's bad for shops, but I think it speaks to a broader gloominess about how we're feeling about the British economy.
Yes, and wouldn't it be wonderful if an election was fought, as it largely was between 1946 and 2019, on the prospectus of, what about the pound in my pocket? Am I going to get a little bit richer this year? Will the value of my house go up? Can I afford another holiday? And now it's about things like immigration, which were not touchstone issues in quite the same way. Our country operates best when self-interest pervades into national interests. We are naturally, I think we are, I hope we are, maybe I don't know anymore, but I still instinctively feel we are a conservative country with a small c.
Yeah, so we're not exactly kind of revolutionary.
We're not revolutionary. We are ever.
We tend to leave that to the Europeans.
Well,
but we
let
are
France
more...
cut their heads off.
Right, yeah, we are kind of, I think we are more, fickle's probably the wrong word, but I think that the voters are more volatile than they've ever been. I mean, look, the last election was ultimately, I think, battled over the economy and also kind of faith in politicians.
Yes.
You have seen the rise of Nigel Farage and Reform, and everyone sees them obviously primarily as a party and politicians about immigration, border control. But I think, look, when it comes to the crunch, people will often think about how well off they are or aren't becoming, and that will figure really, really big at the next election too. Obviously, the Labour government has been trying to do bits and pieces on this, so they're talking endlessly about what they're doing to tackle the cost of living. Most of their policies are looking at how you can curb inflation, but you know, it's so interesting because at the end of the day, they've totally failed on growth. Our economy is not expanding, it is flatlining. And as long as that is the case, people won't feel better off, people won't feel richer, they won't want to go out and buy that new car, they won't treat themselves to that extra holiday. And that, I think, will be what Labour's judged on.
That is the political editor of The Sun on Sunday, and it's Kate Ferguson. Kate, thank you very much for coming in. And Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to you.
You too. Ho, ho, ho.
Ho, ho. Well, that's right. In fact, ho, ho, ho. We can confirm. That is Kate. Listen, we've got to talk the royals now, because every time we talk about the royals, particularly Harry and Meghan, our social media goes... And so the man to ignite the fuel of social media is, of course, Talk's royal correspondent, Rupert Bell. We might have a little chat about Villa as well after this short break. Stay tuned.
Brand new for 2026. It's going to be the only way to start your day. It's the home of common sense. It's where the nation can come to speak about the day's news. It's the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. You know who you are. You get up, you graft, you work hard. I'm here for you. We want to hear your side. Promise you one thing. It is where the nation can and will come to talk. The Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show, weekdays from 6 a.m.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
Our soft power in this country should never be underestimated. We are really good at putting on a pageant. The currency of our royal family is incredibly powerful, and it is redoubled by the current President of the United States' love for this country, our pageantry and our royal family. So the King and Queen are highly likely to visit the US in April, and William, of course, he is the boss of the FA, isn't he? He's the president. Well, he's going to go to the World Cup. I mean, you would, wouldn't you? Just any self-respecting bloke who had a chance to go to the World Cup in the USA, Canada and Mexico would do so. So there's going to be royal trips to woo Trump, according to the Times. The King and the Prince of Wales are going to visit, and the advanced talks for Charles and Camilla to make the trip in April are highly likely. The visit would be the first by a reigning monarch in almost 20 years, since Queen Elizabeth accepted an invitation from George W. Bush in 2007, and later Wills is expected to travel to North America when the US hosts the Football World Cup with Canada and Mexico. I'm going to commit this to video, to live TV, and say we're going to win the World Cup with a completely straight face. It is our time. And from my mouth to Rupert Bell's ears, Talk's royal correspondent, welcome to the show.
Well, up the villa.
Go on, I'll see you at, go on, I'll see you at Chelsea later.
Well, sadly, I'm not going to
You're
Chelsea
not going?
later. No, but... You know,
I'm going.
But, yeah, but you live in London, so it's probably easier for you. You're right.
Anyway, nice kit. He looks really cool, doesn't he? Really cool.
And Morgan Rogers will win it single-handedly.
Morgs is going to win it. They're going to give him loads of space just outside the box, and he'll do one of those lovely shots.
But more importantly...
No, less importantly...
OK, less importantly, we're going to win the league, but...
Oh, sorry, I thought you were talking about the Royals. No, more importantly, we're going to... Yes, sorry, I interrupted you.
Well, more importantly, given that I am supposed to be here on the Royals, so just getting it back on track for the listeners, because,
no, don't. Yes, okay, keep going, sorry. Keep going.
Anyway... William obviously is a Villa fan, so we keep the Villa theme going, as we know. And
George.
And George, but passionate football fans, as we know. We've seen him when the Lionesses have won, and so him going to the States is about as obvious as it possibly could be. But the significant thing of when the World Cup is taking place, and obviously America celebrate independence on July the 4th, that's when the World Cup is on, and obviously, given your optimism, England will still be in the World Cup at that stage, because I think the final is on July the 19th. Oof. So there is still, England should still very much be alive and kicking as far as the World Cup is concerned. And with the 250 years of independence, it's obviously a time when the royal family, well, he would be there and maybe get involved in some of the independence celebrations that obviously Trump is probably planning to sort of prove his status, as he always says, as the world's greatest president. And as a result, there will be, I'm sure, lots of things for maybe William to come along to. In terms of the King, if he goes in April with the Queen, it is, you know, obviously 20, years since the Queen was there, or no, 19 years since she was there. For him to be there again around the independence, but as you alluded to, the soft power element of the royal family is almost their raison d'etre.
Yes.
You know, you saw it when we had the state visit here, where they basically made it a bells and whistles tour for Trump to make him feel extra special, because we can do it well, and he loves all that pomp and circumstance. How much he actually likes the political government here is that may be debatable, but in terms of his love of the royal family, I think that is there for all to see, and he's proud of his Scottish and British heritage. So I think it is something we've got to be very grateful for. If the special relationship would probably be pretty fractured if it wasn't for the royal family.
Indeed, and we have reached a critical stage in this relationship, because This month, the US paused its promised multi-million-pound investment in British tech over regulatory investments, frustrations regarding online safety rules, the digital services tax, and food safety restrictions. It's a £31 billion investment, and it was the prize announcement from Trump's state visit in September. But now diplomats hope that the royal family can again help to keep the special relationship on track, which just goes to show these set-piece announcements are basically, like the sale of your house, subject to contract.
Absolutely. And the royal family, there, and, Trump always likes a big announcement, but it's in the detail. The devil is in the detail in these things. And there are clearly frustrations from an American perspective about the way the government do their business and are trying to do it, and the regulations. We're feeling it, everyone's feeling, increased regulation. Well, on a political level, there are. And, Keir Starmer, has got a balancing act from its own party's point of view, because Trump is not their best friend as a whole, you would think, within the framework of the Labour Party. So he's got a dance, and he does tend to fall for the MPs. But if a 31 billion investment, it's not going to look good for the Labour Party, and as they try and trumpet the growth that they need. So, but the royal family are a big link here. Now, whether would Keir Starmer go to America in April? Yvette Cooper as Foreign Secretary would probably be expected. But Keir Starmer, well, he's a football fan, as we know. Obviously, Villa are going to beat his beloved Arsenal.
We already did.
Well, we've done it. We're going to beat them again on their patch later in the week. But Keir Starmer is a football fan, so you would have thought he might want to find a way. He does like racking up the air miles. That he might find a way of going to the World Cup and be part of the William entourage, particularly if we're seen to be getting near that final that you're so convinced we're going to get to, Johnny.
Well, I do come with some credibility here, because I have correctly predicted the last two World Cups and the European Championship, and I predicted that Argentina would win the World Cup on talk with Andy Gray. And basically, between the two of us, he's going to say, it's going to be a fairy tale for the wee man. And, of course, that has to be Messi. He wasn't talking about Richard Keys at the time. And before that, I tipped Italy to win the European Championship. And before that, France to win the World Cup. So this would be my fourth successive prediction. So I'm really sticking with it.
Well, I can't argue with you, because I can't remember you doing that, Johnny. But I'll trust your.
It's there on your social media. Honestly.
I'm sure you did, and I'm sure. Forget Messi. It's Martinez who won it single-handedly.
Well, that's also very true.
So moving on, I think we're supposed to be talking about the Royals, but more importantly,
Andy Gray is royalty.
Well, in many eyes he is. But in terms of what the royal family can do, if part of the independence celebrations makes sense. But will there be more stuff going on behind the scenes? We've seen it with every state visit. State visits are not just plucked out of the air. There is a background and a whole package that needs to be worked out. And what is the end game? And the royal family are the sort of conduit, the sort of middleman in many ways, because they bring a certain cachet to the proceedings. And the king is very mindful of his role within that, and it extends to whether it be the Commonwealth or everything. He knows he has an important part to play quietly on the world stage.
We have incredible value in that. Now, let's just talk about the Sussexes now. I mean, they've got a decent front office. They're doing quite nice things on Netflix and on social media, but they've lost their 11th publicist in 5 years. Make sense of this, Rupert.
I don't know what you've been watching on Netflix, but if you're watching Meghan's programme, if that was good, then your judgment has completely gone out the window.
I confess I haven't watched it, but it is a pithy question to lead you into an answer.
Yeah, well, it is a pithy question. And actually, I thought the programme was, if you slightly mispronounce the word you just mentioned, that's my view of the programme. So it was awful. And they've had a bad year. But to keep losing publicists, I'm sorry, good employees, the one thing you find is you do engender loyalty and people can stick around.
Yes.
Methinks there's a lot going on behind the scenes. And the problem is, Meghan doesn't listen to her publicist. She thinks she knows best. And that's probably what these, on paper, look to be very eminent people coming to join the team who've got decent reputations. But unfortunately, there's no point having a publicist who knows what they might be doing if the client doesn't listen to what they're suggesting might be a good move. Because over this last year, there's been one PR problem after another. And the reception for her, as ever, and her cooking program was poor. The way they've had to rebrand their charity. And so it's not been a good 2025. So if a publicist has gone, they've got rid of other members of staff as well. It's even when they were in the royal family, there were allegations surrounding the way she and the team, they treated their team.
Yeah.
And the same kind of rumours are coming out once again, that all is not well in the House of Sussex. But again, if going back to our original point, will Harry try and meet his father when he's in the States? Will they try and engineer a meeting?
I hope so. They've got to make
Well,
peace,
now, here's my point. I don't think the king will want. The reason being, it then turns his visit into a soap opera, and is a distraction from what he's trying to do. And you saw again over Christmas, the story was not about the parade to church. It was who was there and who was not there.
That's right, yes. We don't want that. They don't want that, do they?
They don't want that. So, in a way, if you end up with Harry turning up and say, will he, won't he, even if it's for 45 minutes, you see him getting off a plane and has to go into Washington, you're not saying under cover of darkness, but then to have this private meeting, that just doesn't feel what the king would want to be doing, because it's probably going to have to be rushed, but that's not the point. And also, the trust between the two camps is pretty poor. However much the king may want to get back together with his son and have try and have a as normal relationship as possible. So, for the Sussexes, they've got a lot to sort of contemplate, but will they contemplate? The trouble is, they are convinced by their rightness, and unfortunately, whatever they do, and anyone who's taking a job to be the new publicist, well, maybe by the end of the year, you'll probably be looking for have your CV ready, I think, would be the cry.
Everyone's got a chance in the lottery.
Yeah. So, could be going on somewhere else. So it is. The Sussexes have got a lot of contemplating to be doing if they want to sort of get their brand back on track, and not only in the eyes of the British public, which is a long way, they've got a long way to go there, but in the Americans, people just roll their eyes and think, what's the point of them?
Very quickly, scoreline prediction at Stamford Bridge, Chelsea v Aston Villa.
Well, of course, I'm a half-empty man, so I always fear the worst, and then anything is better.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
I do.
So if we lose, well, we've had a 10-match unbeaten run. It was always going to come to an end some stage. However, of course, Johnny, I want us to win. And I'm sure Prince William, if he's not got to Stamford Bridge, will be sitting down in Amner Hall this afternoon with George, probably texting to say if we don't get the Man of the Match award, as he did last time in that match against Arsenal, when they gave it to Odegaard, and they should have given it to any member of the Villa team that day. But anyway, and that was some match to be at. I don't know whether you were at. Anyway, we digress. We're not.
He's the Ronnie Corbett of our network, isn't it? I digress there.
Yes. So yeah, there we go.
Yes,
very good.
My producer. Right, so my producer's telling us to get on with it as well. So, Rupert, listen, thank you very much for joining us. That is Rupert Well, Talk's royal correspondent, and obviously Villa nut as well on the show. Now, some great texts for you. I'll read them out after this short break, and then we will talk about Manchester United's win over Arsenal last night, and then 7 more Premier League fixtures today. Stay tuned to talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
And your texts really matter to us. Guy Harris has tweeted us from the Netherlands. Hello, Johnny. Great show. Thank you, mate. It's not surprising the UK has a much higher share of foreign-born or trained doctors. Many are trained in English-speaking countries like India, so the language barrier is far lower than France or Germany. That's a very interesting point. More importantly, this is a canary in the coal mine for STEM subjects. If we're no longer training enough people properly to produce doctors, that failure will inevitably hit tougher disciplines like engineering as well. To me, this is a result of 40 years of dumbing down in education driven by a soft, ideologically captured system where everyone gets a prize. That's from Guy Harris in the Netherlands. I think that's star contributor of the day. Thank you for that. From Martin. Hello, Martin. Tony Blair was a revolutionary, but the people who should have been pushing back against his reforms did not. And Stan in Cheshire. Good morning, Johnny. If the junior doctors get this pay rise they are striking for, it creates more problems. It'll then cause an imbalance of pay scales in the workplace. Engineers, builders, office workers, etc. They'll all want larger pay rises, and the result will be inflation getting out of control. Your points, your opinions count for so very much on the show here on Talk Breakfast. A busy, busy day of Premier League action. All started last night when every dog had his day because Patrick Dorgu gave Manchester United a win over Newcastle with a single goal. It means United are up to 5th. Let's say good morning to Arsenal reporter at The Sun, Simon Collins. Hello, Simon.
Morning, how are we doing?
Very good, thanks, very good. Now, despite all the noise, United, who have supposedly had a crisis season, they're level on points with 4th place Chelsea. They're not in the title race, but under Amorim, they've vastly improved.
Yeah, it's been kind of one step forward, 2 steps back for United, but I think that result last night, I think Amorim will really see as a big moment because, you know, they're missing Bruno Fernandes, who every United fan will tell you is their best player. They've had Mbeumo go to the Africa Cup of Nations. And the players that got them over the line were the likes, as you say, of Patrick Dorgu, who's, you know, not always had their best performances. But I think that kind of spirit and the fight, and also I think a bit of a change of formation from Amorim, which I think he's in the past been reluctant to do, is maybe a sign that they're getting the progress, and hopefully they can try and finish in those European places this season.
Now, Arsenal are 2 points clear of Manchester City at the top, but Manchester City have a 2.5-hour advantage over Arsenal today because City are at Forest. They win that game and then they put pressure on Arsenal by going top ahead of Arsenal's game with Brighton kicking off at 3.
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of phase we're now in the title race, which I think a month ago we weren't really sure we were going to get, where that goes back and forth. And we had it last weekend where obviously City won and Arsenal had to go to Everton and get a result. So there is that little bit of psychological advantage for City. They can be the ones to put the pressure on. And, you know, Forest will be a difficult game, but I think City just look like the City of old, really. You know, Erling Haaland scoring goals, Phil Foden back to his best. And there's a bit of an anonymous feel about them, particularly when we're getting into the real meat of the season.
A deeply emotional day is expected at Anfield as Liverpool take on Wolves. It is something that will be very precious to the Jota family. Diogo Jota was a Wolves player and he was then a Liverpool player, and his 2 boys will be mascots for this game. I don't think they'll be anywhere more emotional than at Anfield today.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Anfield, we know, I think it's probably one of the most famous places in football, one of the most, you know, spiritual, emotional places. And I think today we'll probably really, really see that. We've seen it every game this season there. They've been singing Diogo Jota's name on the 20th minute, of course, after his shirt number.
Yeah.
Some lovely words in the build-up to it from Van Dijk, from Jurgen Klopp. And, yeah, I think...
Probably Andy Robertson as well was his Bezzy, wasn't he?
Of course, yeah. I mean, we saw when Scotland qualified for the World Cup. I mean, that was an amazing moment for him, but he took that to reference Diogo, didn't he? And I think it's probably one of those things where we haven't spoken about it every single week, but when you get a moment like this, I think we've seen some really beautiful words, and I think we probably will see a really, really beautiful tribute to him today.
But there are 3 horses in the title race. It's not Chelsea or United. It's third-placed Aston Villa, who are just a point behind City and 3 behind Arsenal. They're at Chelsea, and again, it's a staggered kickoff. It's at 5:30 today. That is worth talking about as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that is a massive game. I mean, Villa have been a brilliant story, really. I mean, people forget the start of the season, they couldn't really buy a win. You know, they really
couldn't score a goal.
I know, and they've found their feet so well. I mean, Morgan Rogers has been absolutely brilliant. I think the kind of sideshow of today is, you know, him versus Cole Palmer, is that sort of battle to be England's number 10. Obviously, Jude Bellingham as well.
I'm just going to do that because they both do that when they score. Yeah.
So, I mean, that should be a great game. And I think for Emery, they've had some big wins. That result against Arsenal a few weeks ago was massive. But I think if they can go to Chelsea away from home, keep this streak going, I think we'll have to talk about them as being title contenders. And what a brilliant story that is. We're so used to having the big juggernauts. But to have someone like Villa there would be fantastic.
Would be amazing. Now, Enzo Maresca is talking into the jaws of a crocodile when he says things like, "This has been the worst 48 hours of my life." Every time a manager complains about the chairman, it's they get killed, they get moved on, they get sacked. At the beginning of the season, Nuno, who worked wonders at Nottingham Forest, started complaining about the chairman. What did the chairman do? Got rid of him. And so Maresca, despite crowning them world champions and winning the Europa Conference League, he couldn't have made a better start, really, as Chelsea manager. I mean, you keep on talking like that, and now he has to keep denying it all the time, and it unsettles the team. He's going to get the bullet if he keeps. I mean, Chelsea loves sacking managers.
Yeah, I mean, it was a weird sort of thing from Maresca, because they had quite a routine win, and then he suddenly comes out with these comments. And as you say, I mean, I can't think of a situation where a manager has gone head-to-head with an owner and won.
No. Well, maybe Alex Ferguson.
Possibly, yeah. But
I mean, again, you can name it on the fingers of one hand, can't you?
Yeah, I mean, you don't go against... I mean, they are, at the end of the day, they're your paymaster. They're the one in charge of your job. And Maresca, he's also tried to kind of say, you know, I've been so clear about what I was talking about. He's not really been clear. It's kind of been worked out through sort of these cryptic messages. But as long as he keeps winning, he'll be fine. But when you add those comments or results, it's only really going to go one way.
What a pleasure to talk football with you, Simon. That is Simon Collins. Thank you very much. He's the Arsenal reporter with The Sun, previewing a big morning, lunchtime and afternoon and early evening Premier League day today. Started off last night with United beating Newcastle. A very warm welcome to you into the closing stages of a brilliant breakfast show. I hope you've enjoyed it. In just a moment, we're going to talk about this gap year with soldiers to be trained to fight in war zones if they fancy, with the former British Army Colonel Simon Diggins. Stay tuned.
Brand new for 2026. It's going to be the only way to start your day. It's the home of common sense. It's where the nation can come to speak about the day's news. It's the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. You know who you are. You get up, you graft, you work hard. I'm here for you. We want to hear your side promise you one thing, it is where the nation can and will come to talk. The Jeremy Carr Breakfast Show, weekdays from 6 a.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Now, in a sign of the times, school leavers will be trained to fight in war zones as part of a voluntary paid gap year in the armed forces. The government plans to offer school and college leavers the chance to spend a year in uniform to test whether they enjoy the forces life. The scheme, which was recommended in the Strategic Defence Review earlier this year, is part of efforts to solve a crisis in recruitment amid the growing military threat from Russia. And further details have now emerged, including that recruits will be offered military training to prepare them for combat in war zones. Is this a good idea? And it will potentially involve potential soldiers being made into men and women if they want to stay in it and they like the military life. Should we talk to former British Army Colonel Simon Diggins about that? Morning, Simon.
Very good morning. Happy Christmas to you.
Happy Christmas to you. Thank you.
I think, basically, I think it's a good idea. It's part of the government starting to get serious about what national resilience and national security is about. And it's not just that the suggestion of kind of gap year soldiering, but also other ideas need to come through as well in terms of civil defence, in terms of national infrastructure, resilience, all those sorts of areas. But going to the specific thing, I think it's a really good idea. I did it myself. I did a short service deliverance commission. I did 9 months, 3 weeks at Sandhurst, and 3 months later I was on the United Nations ceasefire line in Cyprus. So it can be done. I mean, I was looked up by an extremely good sergeant, I have to say. Otherwise, I was the ultimate Rupert, as they call young officers.
Really?
But I think more seriously, I think it's a good idea. Match it with something else, though. Match it with the opportunity to do voluntary service, to do work in hospitals. Maybe do some advanced training, do the whole thing. So it doesn't become all just about being in the military. But the idea of our young people contributing to the national resilience of our country, I think is fundamentally a good one. And military should be one of the options on that palette.
So the scheme will open for recruitment in March 2026. It'll start small. It's for the under 25s. It'll begin with a cohort of 150 elite people, but ministers hope it will eventually rise to more than 1,000 a year. We've got some comment from people. First of all, this is Elle, and she says the country is not worth it.
The only problem with all this compulsory army is my dad signed up voluntarily at 17 years old and fought from 1944 in the Second World War. He then went on to work for the diplomatic service. So he's forces and government, civil service whole life. He was really concerned about the immigration. We actually lived in Crowborough. So all that's going on in Crowborough, we lived there. That was a beautiful place. He was really concerned. And do you know what he said? He said he wouldn't join up again after what he's seen with the immigration because it wouldn't be worth it. My nephew was in the Navy as well. We just think that the country's not worth it.
Well, that is a really, really sad indictment of where we are, Simon. What would you say to that? Can you uplift us a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to deny that we haven't got severe problems in our country, it could be anything from immigration through to productivity to young people with nothing to do. I mean, all those things are absolutely true, absolutely correct. For me, it's can this country change? Do we have within us the potential to be great again, to be good people, to be a strong country together? And all those things I think are absolutely true. And at the moment, we've got the if you like, the outside threat of Russia and Putin's imperialism out there. And so for me, of course, we should serve our country. We should look for opportunities to serve our country. So, look at the good in this country. And there's still many, many good people in this country. And how can we garner that, bring it together, and take it forward? And one of the ways could be through military service. The other thing military service, it brings people together from different backgrounds, different things. Because one of the issues we've got, clear issue we've got the problem, is integration. We're a very divided country. We need to integrate a military service where people are thrown together by different backgrounds.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting as well, because that really did help. It did bring people together, particularly in the world wars, where there was more social cohesion in those days. Now, this is another voice note from Judy, who wouldn't encourage anyone to join because of the way that we treat them. Judy.
I wouldn't encourage anybody to join armed forces the way that this country treats them. If they come home from fighting, they're hounded by solicitors for the rest of their lives. MOD just throws them under a bus. My son was in the army, but I'm afraid now I would tell him, no, you're not going. Tony Blair sent him to fight in foreign lands with equipment that would have shamed a third world country. Who can not forget them snatched Land Rovers, which were neither use nor ornament, and all them young men getting blown to bits. What about them 6 soldiers that got beaten to death just because the radios didn't work? They couldn't send for help. No, this country doesn't deserve our young soldiers. Thank you.
Oh, Judy, again, Simon, we're getting a lot of this, and we need to rebut this. I mean, is there a lot of truth in what she said, and is the army getting better at its equipment?
I think what the lady said is, unfortunately, was absolutely true. And have we got our defence procurement right? No, we haven't. The disaster of Ajax, the tracked reconnaissance combat vehicle, that has not happened, and it's actually injuring people now while it's in prototype. Shows that we haven't got our system right. And she's right to point to the problems of Snatch Land Rover in Iraq. It always used to give me a little bit of twitch when I used to go with one of the damn things, because you knew they weren't going to keep you together. But can we get it better? Yes, we can. We look at where the army got itself to in the 1930s, and we were beaten in Dunkirk in 40, but by 44, 45, we were world-winning, world-beating again. So we can make it better. The issue of looking after our soldiers is absolutely key. The kind of legal threats that are coming to our veterans from what happened in Northern Ireland, and even more recent services in Iraq and Afghanistan, are there. The government needs to have a consistent line, consistent policy about what we're doing. Again, it is sometimes despairing to have to listen to that. It's not incorrect, but actually the question is, can we make it better? And I think we can. If I genuinely didn't think we could do this, Johnny, I wouldn't come on your programme and say, I think we should do this thing. Okay. But I think we can make it better.
Well, I hope we can, and thank you for your positivity, because we really need this amongst our audience and viewers. Chris in Newbury has just tweeted and wants to ask you this question, Simon. If the military should be used to police the English Channel, if the answer that Simon gives is no, because it's against the laws of the sea, then why should my daughters ever think of wanting to protect this country if the military won't? Again, Chris, this is, a really negative view that we need to shoot down.
I think in terms of the patrolling of the English Channel, if the law doesn't allow us to do it at the moment, I can't think why it shouldn't do, then we need to look at the law, because I think there is a problem here. If you've got the number of people who are arriving illegally in this country and the civil forces cannot protect them, then we need to have that. And there is a perfectly good system to do it. It's called military aid to civil power, and it applies across all 3 services, where the civil agency, the police, the border guard, whoever say, actually, we don't have the resources to do this, we need more assistance, and then they bring it in. So there's no reason at all why, in law, that can't take place. There may be some specific laws that need to be changed, but I see no good reason why they can't be used to patrol the channel as well. And it is one of the key issues at the moment in the country. It's causing huge division within the country. It's making us feel very insecure about our own lives, particularly women feeling insecure about their lives. So let's get on with it. Let's sort out this issue. And if we need to bring the military to do that, so be it. Change the law if you need to. But I personally believe that there is the power already exists. It's called military aid and civil power. The legislation should already exist.
Simon Diggins, thank you very much for being so clear on so many issues. Former British Army Colonel, talking a lot of sense. I hope that you're slightly more heartened than you were when you contacted us here at Talk. It's been a fantastic morning. Thank you very much for all your contributions to our brilliant guests. It has been an enlightening show. I have learnt an enormous amount, and doubtless after 10 o'clock I will continue on that learning curve with Phil Dave.
Oh, good morning, Mr. Gould.
How are you? I'm busting. Really great. Really, what a great show.
Busting? Why? Did you not digest your breakfast properly or something?
Well, I haven't had it yet.
Oh, I see.
I've been up since the early lark.
Yes. And
Yes.
doing sterling work. It's
Well,
been a pleasure listening to you.
It's been great. It's been a really very strong morning.
Yeah, well, that's hopefully the strength of that morning will continue after 10, because we're going to be carrying on an awful lot of the same subjects that you've been talking about. In particular, we're going to look at the state of the NHS, really, and sort of look at why we seem to be the country that relies on twice as many foreign doctors as most Western countries.